Meeting will be called to order. Thank you for coming tonight. We have a full house. The meeting will begin. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Chair McKnight Morton.
Here.
Vice Chair Fleming. Here. Treasurer Milliken.
Here.
Secretary Davis.
Here.
Trustee DeVarty.
Here.
Trustee Hatcher.
Here.
Trustee Landau.
Here.
I'd like to entertain a motion to move the closed session to discuss collective bargaining to the first order of business. And I need a motion.
So move.
Support? Support. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there a discussion?
Can I just raise an issue with them? I'd just like to state, would it be possible to do public comment prior to that?
I'd rather not, because right now, we need to discuss this right now, and then we can come back, and then we can continue on with our original agenda.
The reason I ask is out of respect for the people that have come tonight to speak to us.
I understand, but we're not going to be gone that long.
Okay.
And when will we approve the agenda?
When we come back. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
All opposed?
All opposed?
No.
Meeting is closed. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. Can we have roll call, please?
Chair McKnight Morton.
Here?
Vice Chair Fleming.
Here.
Treasurer Milliken.
Here.
Secretary Davis.
Here.
Trustee DeVarty.
Here.
Trustee Hatcher.
Here.
Trustee Landau.
Here.
The approval of the minutes, can I get a motion for approval
Can
of
we
the
approve
minutes?
the agenda?
Excuse me, approve the agenda, motion.
Move approval.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have a question about the agenda.
Yes.
On tabs I and J, the blue sheet on the front says for discussion, and the blue sheet on the back says roll call vote for both of those. So is it discussion or is it roll call vote?
Refer this to the president.
You want to answer it?
It's discussion, and if nothing changes, that'll be the exact same way. You'll see it with just action next month, or whenever we vote.
Next month.
Yeah.
For the roll
Yep.
call vote would be next month.
But if a vote were taken, not saying it would be, but if it were, it would be roll call. I guess that's what that meant, right?
Right. And the other question I have is, I guess, under tab J, there's policy 8024. That's new board policy, and I haven't seen a copy of that.
It's done in the back of your.
I saw it in my,
I saw it in the one that came sort of on email, but is it in the packet?
Yes.
yeah,
Where?
It's under J, behind J.
Oh, on
and
the back.
Trying to
Okay, got
conserve
it.
paper.
Yep, thank you.
right.
Those are my questions.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. We're going to, like I mentioned, the approval of the minutes, which is the May 23rd and June 13th closed sessions, and July 18th monthly meeting, and September the 14th special meeting. Any discussion on these meetings? Hearing none? Okay.
Need
Next.
a motion
Need a motion to
to
approve?
approve the minutes.
Oh, I did. I did.
Did she?
Did we already approve the
No.
minutes?
We didn't
Okay.
even approve the
I thought I did. Sorry about that. Need a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Discussion after.
Support?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thought I did. Sorry. Next, we're going to go to the citizen participation.
WCCEA.
Verbal communication first. WCCEA.
Good evening. And you'll pardon me if I refer extensively to my prepared notes. Last February, we had an extraordinarily difficult time scheduling our monthly liaison meeting with the president. 12 days before the long-scheduled meeting, we were informed that the date was no longer available. Several others were proposed that didn't work for us. At one point, we were offered a date in March that was barely days away from the already scheduled March meeting. We, the WCCA, insisted that we have a meeting at some point, preferably early February, because we had important business that we wanted to bring to the president's attention. And we also asked that the VP HR, then Doug Krusel, and the incoming VPI, Bill Abernathy was still the acting, but Kim had been identified as the incoming. We asked that they be there too because we had business to discuss that we thought important enough that they be there. Finally, we settled on a date and had our meeting. And at the end of that meeting, we brought up what we thought was our most important item of business, which was early negotiations. Simply put, we proposed not only early negotiations, but expedited negotiations. Our contract expires in August of 2018. We proposed doing two things: signing off on a calendar, which we have already done. That's the first thing we do in contract negotiations, is sign off on a new calendar well in advance, and we've done that. And the only other thing that we wanted to do was to extend the pay table out to 2021 and be done with it. The following month, we were told there was no interest in doing this. In the late spring, the administration came back and asked us if we were still interested. We said we were. In August, we were asked again, and we said we were. We're now in the middle of September, and we have no answer. And at this point, it's no longer early. We're months away from what would normally be the start of full-blown negotiations. And my team is in preparation for full-blown negotiations. I'm disappointed the college didn't grab the deal. It would have done a lot to satisfy my membership. It would have done a lot to provide at least a modicum of labor peace at the college. But in the meantime, other things have happened. At this time, we currently have 6 grievances in the mill, one of which we filed arbitration for. 2 are at step 2, and for the board who might not understand our process, we start with an oral grievance to the direct supervisor. Step 1 goes to the vice president concerned. Either, in most cases, it's Kim Hearns. In some cases, it's Linda Blakey. Michelle Mueller has a couple of my members under her supervision. Step 1 goes to the appropriate VP. Step 2 goes to the VPHR, and after that, we go to arbitration. We've got 2 at step 2. We have 2 at step 1. And we have 1 that we are yet to file, but it's already in the mill. We've asked for an extension on it because it's a complex grievance that we need to make sure that we've got it right. I expect that that will be filed late this week, if not early next week. 6 grievances in the mill right now. On top of that, we've had 2 grievances earlier this year that were settled. 1 was settled in favor of the faculty member. The college at a step 2 agreed to our grievance. This was a simple case of a faculty member not being paid what the contract clearly black letter said they had to be paid. We had no question we would win that grievance. What we didn't understand is why it had to be grieved at all. Why, when we pointed out what the contract said, the member didn't get paid right away, but instead we waited weeks for that member to get paid as we went through the grievance process. The other grievance was in regard to a letter of reprimand. And because of the personal nature of that grievance, I'll not belabor the details here. If any of you board members wish to talk to me about it privately, I'd be happy to give you the details. But suffice to say that from our point of view, our member won 90%. The college's settlement of that grievance was, in my 13 years doing this job, was unprecedented in how it dealt with a letter of reprimand. 8 grievances in a year. That, and I'm sorry, whoever this is, I apparently punched a button. I apologize. 8 grievances in a year, and actually that's not true. 8 grievances in 9 months. That's unprecedented. In the past, we didn't do 8 grievances in 3 years. We had years we didn't have any. And we've had 8 grievances in 9 months. Finally, we have the OPTs. Because they don't want to be charged with public bargaining, it's my understanding that no one from their unit will address you tonight. But the OPTs are here in strength, most of them wearing orange in unity. And they want to send you a clear message about their unity and about their strength. They can't talk because they're in the room. I'm not in the room, and I can talk. When I spoke to you last in June, I received both public and private assurance that the college would try to settle quickly and wanted to give the OPTs an admittedly unspecified good pay offer. At the next day's bargaining session, they encountered a changed negotiating team without notice, and with it a very different negotiating environment. They felt ambushed, and because of those circumstances, there ensued a series of emails between the president and myself. And then it was nearly 2 months before there was another negotiating session. 2 months. And now I'm sure you're aware the OPTs have filed for fact-finding. Julie has given to Vanessa emails that were sent to the president and CC'd to you on Friday indicating that. It's a time to put this to an end. It's a time to pay them a living wage. We have OPTs with college degrees at the low end who are making $33,000 a year. This is unconscionable. It's time to pay them a living wage. I've already spoken too long, and I'm not talking about the police force tonight because it's my understanding, based on the board's agenda for tonight, that it will not come to a vote until next month. So I'll leave my comments about the police force until next month. But let me say this. Before the college commits hundreds of thousands of dollars to paying for employees that it doesn't yet have, it needs to commit hundreds of thousands of dollars to paying the employees it has and to pay them a living wage. Thank you very much.
Any public comments? Written communication?
Public comment?
Yes.
What'd you say?
Public comments, yes.
Public comments.
Okay,
We have a stand, people signed up.
I just want to make sure. Michael David Bendor.
First, I'd like to ask you to speak up and use the microphone. I have a slight hearing disability, as many people do, and you're not using the microphone, and we can't hear you. I've been here a couple of times before about the police issue, and I'm wanting to speak about that again. I haven't had any answers from the questions that I've raised. I've raised them in writing, I've raised them here in person. You have a $1.3 million deficit according to your budget. Your budget says deferred maintenance, 1.3 million approximately. I think that's what it says. How is it that you can spend another $300,000 or $400,000 when you have a deficit like that? That's one point. Another point is, why do you want to drive students away? The way that this is structured, you're going to have a police force with sworn officers. The U.S. Congress has before it some bills that would require sworn police officers to ask for papers. It's not in your control if you have a police force what they are going to do. I sent that to you in writing. I gave you a copy of the actual articles that were in the paper. You're setting it up so that we're going to have people patrolling here. They're going to be asking for papers from people, and you're going to lose all the students that are worried about their immigration status. Is that what you really want to do? What about the returning veterans that have post-traumatic stress, and they then are confronted with an armed police officer on campus? The whole point of your having a police force is they're going to be armed. You already have safety officers. What is the point of doing this? I've asked the question, what are the studies, how is this going to make this a better campus? How can it possibly make it a better campus? What is the problem that you're trying to address? Cross the street over at St. Joe's, there's a full-time deputy that I help pay for because I live in Superior Township. And I am a supporter of the Sheriff's Department. I helped organize a millage so that we would have adequate police coverage in Superior Township, and we do, and it's made a difference. The proper place for the police is with the county and the local jurisdictions, not a college. The nature of the college is going to be changed if you have a police force. You will be a police force. You will be charged with whatever they do wrong. Are you able to handle, are you expecting us citizens to handle million-dollar judgments against the police if they use their guns improperly? You are going to be liable, we are going to be liable as the community for whatever they do wrong. And I don't see why we need to take on that kind of a liability for a college. What is the benefit? What is the problem that you're trying to solve by having a police force? We already have a lot of police forces. I think we have like 11 different jurisdictions.
Time. Thank you very much. Judy Bonnell Wenzel.
Hi. As I understand it, it's not going to be voted on today, but I'll have my say for 3 minutes. I've been told not to say the N word, the R word, or the G word. Okay, so I'll try not to say any of those words. So I'd like to say a word, reconciliation. The police that I know, the judges that I have watched, and the people that I have heard speak in this county, they talk about reconciliation and restorative justice circles. These are things that I think that we need to work on so that we're ahead of the other colleges and not behind. And we don't want to be behind the times. I think the millennials, the students who come here now, they want restorative justice. They get that at the high school over at Ypsilanti. And we need to start to find out about that. And I actually took a class here as a social work continuing education student, and there was a whole class for a whole day about restorative justice and the circles so that people could talk to each other about what they were upset about. And I think this is the way that we need to go. We do have security officers right now, and whoever is going to be the security officers in the future, they need to be trained in reconciliation, restorative justice circles, and things like that that are the leading things that our people who are worried about security in our county are thinking about. I've heard Kathy Wyatt talk recently about that. She works for Jerry Clayton, who's the sheriff in this county, and I hope that we can go in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen Vojic Strode.
Stroud.
Stroud, okay.
Stroud. Oh,
Yes, you do. You do
Oh,
need
it's
it.
just for the video.
It helps with the,
Oh, good.
Stroud.
It's on. It's on.
It's on for the video, not for the room.
I'm Kathleen Fojic Stroud. I've lived in this at 2271 Placid Way in Ann Arbor, Michigan for 25 years now, same home. And I've been in this community since I was 18 years old. And when I was 28, I was elected to the Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners, and I served there for 8 years with distinction, if I may say so myself. Now, I'm only a citizen today, and I'm only here to ask Richard and Angela and Ruth and David and Cynthia and Bill, some of you I've reached by email. I'm asking you to postpone, simple, postpone the vote on the police department, on the Washtenaw Community College Police Department. Please postpone the vote, Richard, and if you need a reason, the reason is the taxpayers are going to speak to you on November 7th, and they're going to tell you whether they want to pay an extra mill. And you know what it adds up to for public safety. You would not be a good public servant if you didn't at least wait one more month to listen to the taxpayers. And then, if they vote for public safety, then you, as Washtenaw Community College, will have a better bottom line because you'll be able to use some of that money. Now, if you pass this today, that may not be available to you. I don't know, there's rumors back here, but we are not party to the information. I don't know if you're going to vote on it tonight or not. If you're going to vote on it tonight, please vote to postpone till after November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Claire Sparkling.
Hello, distinguished members of the board. Today you will be voting on the revisions to Policy 3045, General Education Philosophy and Requirements. This is a letter that I'm reading from the communication faculty at Washtenaw Community College. So tonight you will be asked to pass a motion to change the courses that our students are required to take to earn an Associates of Arts, Associates of Science, and/or an Associates of Applied Science at WCC. Under their current general education requirements, students must successfully complete a course within the communication general education strand. The proposed change will actually eliminate the communication requirement, making communication a mere option among many within another strand. And should you pass this motion, it will negatively alter the educational and professional success of our students for not just their college career, but for a lifetime. We respectfully request that you oppose this motion. We are in support of WCC becoming compliant to the MTA, but we recognize that an MTA-specific plan, including a required communication course, either speech communication or interpersonal communication, is vital to our students' success. As you know, over 70% of our transfer students transfer to Eastern Michigan University. And Eastern Michigan University requires their students to take a speech communication course as part of their general education requirement. All students that begin their educational careers at EMU will have this communication skill. However, if Policy 3045 is adopted, our WCC students transferring to EMU will completely bypass EMU's communication requirement. They will not be required to take communication. They will, however, have yet another writing class their junior or senior year as part of EMU's degree-specific writing course. Without an MTA-specific plan that requires a communication course, our students will not have the opportunity to hone their ability to verbally communicate with persons inside and outside of the organizations that they belong to, which, according to NACE's Job Outlook from 2016, this is the most important skill that employers want. We will have failed them if we don't make communication a requirement. And what of our students who are seeking a 2-year degree? How will those students compete in a job market without the training to effectively communicate? Which, as the AAC&U's article, Falling Short, College Learning and Career Success 2015, informs us that communication is the most important learning outcome that employees seek. Imagine a WCC student preparing to interview for their dream job. What will set them apart from other candidates? Our current students have the ability to effectively communicate their message to future potential employers. But without the skills obtained through a course within the communication strand, future students won't have a fighting chance to win that job. As a communication discipline, we have voiced our concerns at the General Education Town Hall. We negated the idea of this change through the survey that was sent out through faculty. We spoke to everyone and anyone that would listen. Now we are coming to you, and we emphatically disagree with this proposal and plead to you, please do the same. Do not pass this motion. Do what is right for our students by approving an MTA-specific plan that selects fundamentals of speaking or interpersonal communication in the general education strand as a requirement at WCC. As our mission states, we are here to serve students. So let's serve our students and let's serve our community by ensuring that our students will be prepared to be successful today and well into their future. Respectfully, the communication faculty at WCC. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to say thank you to all our people who got up to speak. Okay. Yes.
Are there any
No,
more?
this is all the ones that I called for. Yeah.
You'll just come up.
Well, just come on up, because I don't see your name. Oh, Ann Garcia? That's you. Okay.
Some people call me Shy Ann. I have no idea. Yeah, I know, it's a myth to me, too. So I'm really glad to start that off with that little bit of humor, because I had not understood before. The gentleman a couple of speakers back said that he had written and spoken here before, and he seemed upset about that. And it occurs to me that we come here and we do these kind of presentations, and this is my 3rd time, and I've never gotten any feedback. I've never been told anything after I say it. All of you are looking at the person. Now, you just smiled now because I made a joke about myself, but by and large, you're all looking at the person with such firm, non-expressive faces that it really makes the person up here nervous. And I actually show a video in my psychology class which shows that if you want to stress out a speaker, the best way to do it is to have those firm, non-smiling faces. So I'd like to start off by saying I'm happy to smile at you, and I'd really like it if you'd smile at me back. Thank you very much. The next thing I wanted to say is I wasn't going to speak about the gun issue, but I'm reminded that when I was here a couple of months ago, about 7 different police officers trotted out here from different agencies and told you how they had all started using police officers with guns at their colleges. And it reminded me that just because everyone's doing it does not make it right. That's known as conformity. And that what you really want to ask is not how many people are doing it, but whether or not it's working. Whether or not they had a problem before they did that, and whether or not anything is any better after they did that. And if all you do is count how many people are doing it, you're not really finding out what I think you would want to know. I cited a study about the weapons effect at that time that shows that the mere sight of a gun often increases the chance that people will feel aggressive. So I don't care if there's a police officer here or not, don't want to spend any more money on something we don't need, but the part that I'm the most concerned about is the mere sight of a gun and that people might increase their violence. Mm-hmm. The thing I really came here to talk about is the salary for the OPTs. And I'm going to tell you 3 quick stories. I'm a very quick speaker, so if you can listen quickly, I will speak quickly. Believe it or not, I know I look 23, but the truth is I'm 63. And when I was first hired in my first or second full-time job, in 1977, I was given $10 an hour in 1977. And my rent was about $50 a month if I shared an apartment, and it was $200 a month if I paid for my apartment. And I can promise you $10 was enough money to live on. But I'm here to tell you it's probably not 1977 anymore. I'm almost certain it's not. I'm certain I'm not 23. I wish. And I'm here to tell you that you're not paying the secretaries, the OPTs, enough money. And if you've forgotten what it's like, then I urge you to spend 6 months living on the salary that's being offered to them and see what your life and quality of life is like. I don't think you'll like it. I'm reminded also that I was given a fellowship, a full-time fellowship at University of California, San Francisco, which paid my tuition and $900 a month, and that's in the 1980s now. And that was not enough for me to live on. My rent was $500 a month, and I was given $900 a month. So you can see I had $400 a month to do everything else with. So I did what everybody did. I got a job. And the dean of UCSF, or the vice president, or the president, or something of UCSF, called me into his office and said, didn't I remember that one of the rules of getting the fellowship was that I could not have another job? And I said, but I can't live on $900 a month. It was a very generous offer. I was very appreciative. I wasn't asking for any more money. I just wanted to work a job. And he said, well, you may not do well in school. And I said, well, watch me, I'll be okay. And I was. But he said, I don't know why you can't live on $900 a month. Can't you do something where you share your apartment with more people? Or he had some suggestions as to how I could live even more cheaply than I already was. And when we left that meeting that day, he drove away in his $75,000 convertible in the 1980s. And I remember wanting to walk up to him and saying, I was walking home, and would it be okay if he gave me a lift in his $80,000 convertible? So I ask you to think about your own incomes right now. I ask you to think about the expenses that this college incurs in traveling, in food, in all the extracurricular expenses that the administration and anyone else has. And I suggest cutting back, maybe eating at Arby's instead of a nice restaurant, and using that money, if you can't find it from anywhere else, to give the secretaries a raise. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to special reports. Presentation on the local strategic value document, Section 230 of Public Act 108 for 2017.
Sorry, it's got all. Go. Good evening. We're here tonight to present the annual local strategic value. This is a document that we prepare every year as a college to submit to the state of Michigan to demonstrate that we are meeting best practices in how we serve the community, our students, and our partners. First, let me give you a little bit of background. Some of our trustees have seen this many times. A few have not seen it yet, so I'll give you a little bit of background on what's involved in this process. This is a yearly requirement and has been since fiscal year 2011-2012 for the state of Michigan. And it is part of Section 230 of Public Act 108 of 2017, which is the Education Omnibus Appropriations Act. And this is the act that determines appropriations for community colleges in the state of Michigan. The local strategic value is just one component of the funding formula that the state of Michigan uses to determine the percent increase that each community college will get in their budget each year. It's a performance-based funding. The funding formula that is used now was revised in 2015-16. There was a performance indicators task force that oversaw this. And President Belanca was actually part of this task force along with 3 other community college presidents and 2 representatives from the legislature. And they revised the formula to actually be more focused on student success metrics, which you'll see in a minute. The local strategic value has to be passed by board resolution, which is one of the reasons we bring it before you. And you will actually find it in your binder under tab K. You will see both the resolutions page, and then at the end of the board meeting, you'll be voting on it, and the document is there under that tab. The funding formula breakdown that they're using now for the strategic value has multiple parts. The heaviest parts are between sustainability, weighted contact hours, and completion. Sustainability, which is 30% of the funding formula, is a base allocation that all the community colleges get year to year. Weighted contact hours, also 30%. Those contact hours are weighted according to discipline, so the contact hours in the STEM fields, in technology and health, receive double the weight for those contact hours. And then completion is also combined, worth 30% of the formula, and breaks down into 3 parts. The completion performance improvement, which is a rated improvement that uses a metric from the governor's dashboard, which is also a metric that we use for the voluntary framework of accountability, which we've talked about in the past. And that is a 6-year rate in improvement in completion rates for the college. The second 10% comes from the completion number, and that is degrees and certificates, and the data set for that is iPads. And then finally, 10% comes from the completion rate, and again, that's the 6-year rate that we use for the governor's dashboard and the voluntary framework. And that includes awards, so certificates and degrees, as well as transfer rate. So those 3 combined is a big focus on completion, and that is a change from the prior funding formula, which did not focus on that so much. 5% of the formula goes to administrative costs, and what they're looking at there is efficiency. Lower administrative costs usually really equates to more funding. And then finally, the local strategic value is also 5%. So why is the local strategic value so important? 2 main reasons. First, it obviously enhances our opportunity for funding. Since they first started doing this, each year WCC has received one of the highest percentage increases among all comparable institutions. We've either gotten the highest percentage increase, or we've been in the top 3 each year. And second, and just as important, if not more, it showcases our current impact. It really provides documentation of our values specific to what we do in this community and for our group of students, our partners in education and business and industry. And that's what it's intended to do for every college. It really captures what each college in the state is doing in their local communities and how they're meeting what the state determines are best practices. So here are those best practices. There are 15 altogether. In order to get the 5% of the funding formula that's tied to the local strategic value, you must meet 4 out of the 5 in each category. The 3 categories, as you can see, are economic development, business and industry partnerships. The second is educational partnerships, and the third is community services. And then you can see the best practices underneath those. And we address each one of those in the document that you have. Tonight, we will be giving just highlights. Because we do this every year, we will be highlighting really the things that have been new or updated, or we really want to bring to your attention for this past year. And to do that, we'll be having Vice President Hearns, Blakey, Mueller, Johnson, and Flowers helping to talk about the highlights of this year's submission, but it really represents the work of the entire campus and our overall commitment to the community and the students and the partners that we serve. And with that, we will start with economic development and the business and industry partnerships. And Vice President Hearns.
So the college has clinical site agreements with all of the big hospitals in the area, St. Joseph Mercy, University of Michigan, and the VA hospital. And those clinical sites also include our new surgical technology program. The college's nursing program offers a training program for its community clinical nurse preceptors on our campus.
And through the good work of Marilyn Dunham, we have 69 active apprentices that are registered in college credit, advanced manufacturing and technology certificates at the community college. In addition to that, last year we won a University of Michigan USDOT-sponsored grant in transportation, and as a result of that, we were charged in the non-credit area to develop a traffic utility, an ITS traffic utility entry-level employment training program, and we've partnered with Integral Blue and Parsons Bickerhoff to be able to identify what those skill sets are in terms of what's required. Under customized training for area business, the college continues to provide customized training for multiple areas and companies, including companies like Toyota, like Ford, like the city of Ann Arbor, Glacier Hills, et cetera.
As mentioned before, the college developed newly this year a sterile processing curriculum. We've also partnered with the University of Michigan on that program, and they've contracted to pay 2 sections that are actually full for those classes for their employees. The Entrepreneurship Center continues to grow on campus here. We're up to offering 2 boot camps each year that are specific to different program areas across the campus. The center is also integral in hosting Pitch IPSY, which is new to the area, as well as its own pitch competition. And this year they launched a series on the business of being an artist.
Exciting for us is the SBDC hosted on our campus, counseled 540 companies in the last year, over 100 of them. That's more than 100 over the prior year, and trained 256 individuals. So clients opened 38 new businesses, and they created or retained 455 jobs over a 6-county region. Now, for number 4, the advancement for tech advancement in education. In 2017, the college showcased the Advanced Transportation Center, and we did that through the International Auto Show in Detroit at Cobo Hall. In addition to that, we also hosted a session at the Mackinac, the Governor's Mackinac Policy Conference, and at that particular conference, joined with us was Wayne County Community College District, as well as Roger Curtis from the Talent and Economic Development Agency, as well as Ann Arbor Sparks, Paul Krakow. Additionally, the college's ATC is sponsoring or partnering with a consortium of community colleges and other partners at the American Center for Mobility at the Willow Run Airport. We've been working on that for the last year, and a recent impact study stated that the training programs operated by the UA alone this year came to $7.6 million of economic impact for the local community. Under number 5, partnership with workforce or economic development agencies, I want you to know that the college president serves in appointed positions on the following local and regional boards dedicated to economic development. So the Executive Committee of Ann Arbor Spark, the Workforce Intelligence Network, Square One Education Network, and Southeastern Michigan Council of Governments, Economic Development and Education Reform Task Force. Additionally, the college has active partnerships with the Michigan Works Board. I serve as a member of the Michigan Development Board itself. And in 2016-17, WCC President Rose Blanca was awarded the Michigan Works Southeast Award for outstanding service in workforce development in the county. And finally, the college's Career Services Department holds several industry-related fairs, as you know, in partnership with regional employers each year, and they host approximately 70 employers and attract over 150 attendees each semester. And we also invite the Michigan Works Agency to allow for those folks that are being served by Michigan Works to attend those career fairs.
Our second category, educational partnerships.
The first category of partnerships with high schools, we renewed our charter with Washtenaw Technical Middle College. They continue to be a leader in the nation in terms of high schools. 85% of those students are graduating with an associate degree, and their retention rate was over 98% this past year. We've also expanded our partnership with the Ypsilanti Community School District, and we opened a GED ESL site in Ypsilanti Township to serve the residents of that part of the county. We also have expanded the number of high school classes, college classes that we're offering in high schools. We're now offering 28 during 16-17, and that doubled the number of offerings we've had over the last couple of years.
Under number 3, enrichment programs for K-12 students. There were more than 180 participants this year in youth programming and 17 K through 12 summer camps that we sponsored over in 2016-17 through community enrichment.
And we offered our 5th year of our college and career readiness program, which is a bridge program that we offer to Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor schools for students who are interested in being dual enrolled during the academic school year.
The college also offers K through 12 summer enrichment programs at Park Ridge Community Center, and we also host an annual camp and provide ongoing cultural, educational, recreational activities for youth throughout the year.
The Student Services Division continues to host our annual Highway to High Demand job seminar for our area high school students, and this year we focused on jobs in the skilled trades area.
And finally, in 2017, the college partnered with the Square One Education Network in running an innovative vehicle design challenge for K-12 students at the University of Michigan M-City Autonomous Vehicle Test Site.
And in the category of transitions to college for traditional students, the college is in our 3rd year of a $900,000 Department of Labor Youth Build grant. We're just finishing up our 3rd cohort of students where students are able to complete their GED as well as gain construction skills. We've also expanded, we've had our VIP academic advising program for students coming from low-performing high schools. This fall semester, we expanded that program, and so that all first-time in college students now are required to see an advisor and get connected to our services on campus. We also have continued to, as we transition from Compass to Accuplacer, we continue to take the Accuplacer testing to 10th and 11th graders, and we take that to the actual schools, which allows students to identify if they're able to do dual enrollment during the 11th and 12th grade. We also have, as you had a presentation earlier this year about the ALEX, which is the assessment tool that we're using for math. We ran a pilot for the Ypsilanti School District using the ALEX tool so that those students could gain math skills and be able to dual enroll in some of our math classes this year.
Under the leadership of our new Dean of Student Access, Success, Equity, and Inclusion, this year we launched a pilot program called Scholars Learning Community, where we have a set of scholarship students who are sharing a set of common courses, as well as sharing experiences around academics. This learning community is focused on increasing the retention and graduation rates of this cohort.
And in area 4, transitions to college for adult students, you remember earlier this year that our GED, our Adult Transitions GED Preparation Program, was recognized by the state as having an education gain score of over 78%, where the statewide average is 39%. And we also began working with the WCC Foundation, specifically with our veterans, to provide specific emergency funds to our veteran students. We also, the WCC Foundation also instituted an ongoing emergency fund so we can help students with transportation, medical bills, perhaps housing costs that might be unexpected during the course of the semester. And our student services area is now offering mental health and wellness fairs. This provides, we have local agencies that provide these services, and we can connect those students to those services. And we also continue to have our relationship with our Campus Assistance Program, which provides students 24/7 counseling resources 365 days a year.
Under active partnerships with regional four-year colleges and universities, the college has been awarded the Lewis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation Grant, which is a partnership with the University of Michigan, Michigan State, Wayne State, and Western Michigan University, as well as Mott Community College. And the goal of this grant is to increase the number of underrepresented minority students earning bachelor degrees in STEM fields. The exciting part about this grant is that we were also awarded an NSF grant that actually provided funding for the students to help them matriculate to their four-year schools. With EMU and WCC, we're actually still working on our collaborative in regards to the Bachelor of Science in Nursing. We're now in our second year with the number of students accepted expanded from 24 to 32 due to its success. In addition, we've added 3 new 2+2 and 4 new 3+1 agreements in the last year. And we've also added an additional 8 reverse transfer agreements, which are all in place to promote completion.
And the final category is community services.
So under the first category of continuing courses for wellness, activities, et cetera, the college offers more than 200 classes through the non-credit division for personal enrichment, cultural development, et cetera. In addition to that, the college supports lifelong education, quality of life by offering senior-focused health classes, et cetera. And a neat thing that we do is the college offers tuition scholarships for county residents 65 years of age or older.
And in conjunction with the Human Resources Department, the Health Sciences Division launched an employee health and wellness program, which includes a walking program and free classes on wellness and health.
Oh, it's in mine now? Oh, the most recent event in March 2017, as it relates to Free College Day, we had over 300 community members that took advantage of 24 classes that we provided free to the community. Now, under number 3, the community college operates public facilities to promote cultural, educational, or personal enrichment. The college's 500-seat Towsley Auditorium and other space in the Morris Lawrence building on the campus is used for many cultural activities, as you know, throughout the year. Towsley also hosts middle and high school vocal competitions and business and industry events such as the North America Building Trades Union and Michigan Medicine Adolescent Health Conference.
And in 2016, which I think most of you have seen, we inaugurated the first annual student art show, and it was open to the public.
And really exciting, in 2016-17, the college hosted more than 3,863 external events. Patrick Downey was really busy. An increase of over 15% over the last 2 years, and served as a community gateway to the campus for more than 82,000 visitors.
In the next section for public facilities for wellness and fitness, our Health and Fitness Center has over 6,000 community members and offers about 100 classes a week. We also have some pretty exciting news that we were recertified as a medical fitness center, so we can strongly engage and serve the community for folks as they go through rehabilitation.
The college received a grant for a non-motorized pathway from Huron River Drive and Clark Road to the college's main entrance. It's 0.6 miles through a TAP grant, a Transportation Alternative Funding project that equals about $453,000. That will provide safe transportation for non-motorized walkers and joggers and cyclers to the campus.
The college's digital and fine arts faculty continue to work in the community to create art displays of public beautification and present student and faculty art exhibits in the community. And sometime this year, you're going to see public art from our students, alumni, and faculty on buses riding around the city. The college's dental assisting faculty oversee a dental clinic on campus that offers low-cost dental cleaning and services for students, faculty, and staff. And they also work hands-on with University of Michigan dental students.
We continue to support large-scale community events, such as charity walks and other activities that benefit our community partners and nonprofit organizations, the American Cancer Society, the American Diabetes Association, Jude Children's Center as well. Our career services and student development partnered to host a community resource and volunteer fair for students to connect with service agencies from more than 30 nonprofits in our community. And we also administer an online database of service opportunities. So we have a database with over 70 local nonprofits that are looking for individuals to provide volunteer activities, and that allows our students to build a co-curricular transcript as well as provide services to our community partners.
And something that you may not know is through the Parkridge Center in Ypsilanti, the college hosts and it oversees multiple community meetings to promote community involvement and volunteerism. And so these meetings include a weekly Monday meeting for community members focused on programs in the eastern part of the county and the south side of Ypsilanti, the Heritage Park Neighborhood Association for residents to discuss issues with police and local politicians, the Washtenaw County Association of Black Social Workers, a local division of the National Association, to discuss regional and national challenges for people of color, and the Association of African American Contractors of Washtenaw County, a local group addressing inequities of the trade unions and contractors in the area.
We will be asking for a vote on this at the end of the meeting, as we do every year. This will be due to the state in October. And once it's approved, it is required that we post it on our website as part of transparency regulations, so you can always find it posted there on the front page for everybody to read. So are there any questions?
I heard a lot of information about grants all the way through. And I'm hoping that we get a iteration of the number of grants that the college has ongoing and when they're started and when they finish. Because there are a lot of them there, and that's a good thing.
I think that the president would like to address that, if you could.
Oh, yes. Trustee Hatcher, at the next meeting, we will review all the grants, and thank you for, I believe you agreed that we could move it to the next meeting.
Oh, I didn't say when, I just said I look forward to it.
Because this meeting has such a heavy agenda, which is why, but I understand what you're saying, we're looking forward to presenting that.
Trustee?
I'd like to move, if by consensus of the board, that we vote on this now, since we just saw it and had the opportunity to ask questions. I would move that we change the agenda to bring this to the table right now.
Well, is there any discussion on that? To move it?
Support.
Support? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? It has passed.
Okay, so
You know what passed was.
Oh, we got it, it's an action, excuse me.
It's roll call.
Roll call.
Chairman Howard,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fleming,
Yes.
Treasurer Milliken,
Yes.
Secretary Davis,
Yes.
Trustee DeVarty,
yes.
Trustee Hatcher,
Yes.
Trustee Luda.
Yes.
Thank you.
If I may, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to thank the entire college community for all the work that you have put forth in providing these services to our business and our community members and residents. Thank you so much.
All right, we're going to go to monthly reports, personnel recommendations, action.
Good evening. By way of introduction, my name is Sam Beltry.
I'm supposed to introduce you.
Yes, you are.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Shall I go ahead, Rose?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm excited and frankly honored to serve as the college's Vice President of Human Resources and Labor Relations. Really looking forward to working with all of you. And I guess in terms of my first official exercise of my duties here, I would direct your attention to tab B, where we have our personnel recommendations, which reflects the college's most recent hiring activity, and would submit it for your approval.
Okay, is there any discussion on this? Yes, Ruth.
I have a question for Damon about Andrew Carpenter's recycling services is part-time. The manager position for that is still open, or has it been changed?
It has not been changed. Offer has been made.
Okay,
So
so
we
it's
expect
coming.
it to be filled.
I just sort of noticed that there are 2 new non-teaching instructional positions. There are 3 replacements for non-teaching positions. There's 1 replacement for a math position. And we've got 5 retired teachers in this packet. And as I count them, at least 7 openings for teachers. So I'm looking forward to some full-time teachers. I'd like to bring your attention to George Kapp, whose, I think, goal in having 48 years of service here was to have more years of service than Edie Croak did. So I think he managed to do that, and congratulations to him for that. But there's a lot of experience listed in that full-time ending employment category, and a lot of instruction lost, and institutional memory about that instruction lost. So I'm hoping to see some replacements in those areas, and not just in non-instructional appointments.
Yes, go ahead.
I would like to introduce one of the new instruction hires, Joyce Hummel. I think she's in here. She is the new executive director of the library. She joins us from Henry Ford Community College. And you've been here for what, a month now, and this is her first board meeting.
She's a non-teaching instructional person. Thank you.
Gotta have a librarian.
Welcome. Anyone else have any?
She's a replacement.
Any comments? If no one else, I do. Ruth mentioned one, but what really caught my attention, besides George Knapp, of 48 years, we have Robert Bogue, instructional library assistant, auto services, 33 years. The next one is Gary Schultz, professional faculty, industrial technology, retirement, 33 years. The next one is Clarence Hasselback, professional faculty, computer instruction, retirement, 18 years. We have, as was just mentioned by my colleague, some wonderful people that have worked here for many, many years and devoted their time to this institution to teach students. That was the reason why they came and the reason why they stayed and finally said it's time is enough. I really want to say thank you and have it, please have it in the record that this board, I'm hoping I'm speaking for the board, really appreciates their long and arduous work working here at the college. Thank you very much. I do have a couple of questions for Vice President Hearns. It may not be anything, it may be. It did catch my attention that there are 14 professional faculty part-time hires in English. Can you explain that to me?
So we actually, this will be the first fall that we're falling under our under the Higher Learning Commission requirements. And so although this is normal to have this many new hires, they are clumped together in some departments because we had part-time faculty who no longer can teach or meet the qualifications to teach at the college based on HLC.
Based on HLC. So that is still out on the limb there with these other people who are not able, because of HLC requirements.
Correct. So that's why some of the hires are clumped in certain areas in such large amounts like that.
And these people have those requirements?
Absolutely.
Okay. And I understand about the nursing, because there's 14 of them too, but I understand that piece of it because of what they're doing with their program. All right. Any other questions?
How many total part-time hourly English teachers are there?
I do not know, but I can find out. I do not know.
Does anybody know?
It's a
back
lot.
there?
Part-time.
Part-time, English. I know. Is it under 100? Under 90?
Probably around 70, but don't.
Okay,
put that
okay. That's just a
I
range.
can check.
I just thought you'd like to get to see that there are about 70 of them, not just these.
Close to it, yeah. Okay. But I guess, like this is, I guess I just noticed this clump and it just stood out to me, that's all. Yes.
And can I make one more note? In regards to the new faculty that were hired, some of the new faculty were hired earlier in, new full-time faculty were hired earlier in the hiring process. So we do have a new faculty class right now of 8 new faculty, 8 new full-time faculty members.
8 full new time.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's
And
good
those
to know.
are replacements of people
Absolutely.
they're not new positions.
Absolutely.
I move that we accept the report of the personnel.
Thank you, Judy.
Is there a second?
Or approve the personnel recommendations.
It's been approved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Financial report, year end, June 2017. Vice President Johnson.
Very good, thank you. The board might recall that at the July meetings that we did not have our monthly report for the June results because at that time we were in the process of closing the books for year-end, which takes a bit longer than normal. So today we're actually going to have two different agenda items to report year-end results. One tab C, this item, which is our normal monthly report to the board, and then tab G. F, a little later on, we will present the audited financial results in conjunction with our audit principal, Michelle Fowler from Raymond. So under tab C, I'd like to point out to the board just a few of the highlights. For the year, the college had a surplus in the general fund of about $1.4 million for the year, and to remind the board that included a mid-year adjustment that the board had approved of increasing our investment in deferred maintenance by $2 million and campus repair and maintenance another $1 million for that. Of that $1.4 million, our revenues were up about $600,000. About half that amount was in property taxes, and the balance was in tuition for the most part. On the cost side, the personnel side, we were within about $200,000 of the revised budget, and the balance was in the non-personnel side, and it really was a number of areas across the college. And then we also had what we call a mark-to-market loss for the year on our long-term investment portfolio. We have fixed rate bonds. And as interest rates rise, that has a negative impact on the market value, has no impact on the interest income that the college collects on that. In addition to our normal monthly report on the financial, I'd like to just bring to the board's attention a few of the other pages in this. On page 4, the capital fund. A point to bring out is that the CC STEP grant was the largest area of activity, with about $7.4 million of actuals, of which, just to remind the board, about 3.1 of that was college-funded investment, and the balance, as you see up under the revenue section, we actually had about $4.4 million of receipts. There's a little bit left. That'll be our final billing to the state that we will receive here in the not-too-distant future. On page 5, the deferred maintenance fund. With the increased investments this past year, since we've created this fund, the board has authorized, and we've transferred $10.8 million into the deferred maintenance fund. About 6.5 of that had been expended, and another $4.1 million has been spoken for through projects like the parking lots, which were largely spent but not quite finished in terms of final payments. You will also note on this page that it leaves an uncommitted balance at the end of June, about $200,000. To remind the board in the budget that to which for fiscal 18 that you had approved an additional $1.5 million of investment in this current year. You take that 1.5, which we've already transferred into the deferred maintenance fund, which you will see in our first quarterly report for the fiscal 18 results at our next meeting. That 1.5 along with the 200,000. So we'll go into the year with about 1.7 million. And then at the bottom of this page 5, you will see that Damon Flowers and teams, however, they have 1.6 million of it well spoken for. So,
go, Damon.
Last but not least, the last page is the long-term investment portfolio, and the top half of this page is in our normal monthly report to the board. Once a year per board policy, we are required to give you a summary of the total year's results and how our results and how our portfolio shapes up per the investment guidelines that the board has asked us to hold by. And so you will see down under investment types, for instance, that bonds from the U.S. government, for instance, that the board policy calls for a target range of 25 to 65% with a target of 30%, and our portfolio at June 30th was at 31%, and so on. Point of noteworthy that in the municipal area, where we get our highest yield return, we have a range of 15 to 65%, a target of 45%, and you'll see we're at 57%. And that's by our great plan to try to get the maximum yield that we can. On credit ratings, although we had hoped to be invest in some lower rated bonds that we thought were worth the risk given the return, you will see that our current mix is still 0. We looked hard at a number of options, but none of those options we thought were worth the risk, and so we did not invest. And so you can see that most of our investments are in the highest rating. And last but not least, the board policy says that at no point in time during the year will we have a working capital reserve that's less than 5% of the operating budget, which would be about $5.1 million. And you will see that the lowest point that we had for the year was about $8.2 million. So we stayed within the board policy there.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Yes.
On this long-term investment portfolio, I'm looking at the current portfolio mix in regards to what our target is. And I know that as the value of investments change, that percentage changes. Do we rebalance during the year? Are we going to rebalance at this point towards a target, and are you going to reset those targets?
Well, the targets are per board policy.
Right, but there's a target range that's per
and
board.
And there's a range. And so we are constantly looking to optimize the total return for the college, to look at the long-term strategies of duration of our portfolio so that's one of the big things that we accomplished this past year. As bonds matured, we opted to invest in shorter-term maturities with the anticipation that the Federal Reserve would increase rates, and then as a result, we would be able to take advantage of those. So we are constantly trying to rebalance to optimize both for short-term and for long-term.
Okay, I understand that, and that's all good. But I'm looking at, so on these investment types, these 4 types, we set the range. We didn't actually set the exact target, right?
We actually set the target.
I mean, the board.
Yep.
So we set the 30%, 25, and 45?
Yes.
And so we're half on the bonds of the, and bills and notes of the state. We're at half of what our target was.
Correct.
And for local subdivisions or other smaller subdivisions, we're 12. I mean, the difference is right there. Is that happening, the deviation from the target happening because of changes in the value or because of your strategy?
Largely because of our strategy. A little bit because of changes in value, but largely because of strategy. Okay. I can say, for instance, that we had a great state bonds are a little harder to come by. And so we have to be a little bit more patient with that. In this year, we just invested another $1 million in state bonds. Why? Because we thought it was best for the college in terms of long-term yield, and yet still staying both within the range and the target, both. So we're trying to optimize as the market presents opportunities for the college to invest.
So that $1 million that you just invested in state, is that part of that 12%?
No, that's after this point, because this was as of June 30th.
So you're getting closer to the 25% target with that investment?
We are.
Okay. Yeah. Those are just simple questions. Thank you.
Yes.
Mine's even simpler. On the first page, I'm just glad to see that public relations marketing has begun to bring design services in-house to save money. We used to do that, then it was all out, and now it's back in, and I think it's a good idea. So whoever is in charge of that, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. This is an action. I need a motion.
So move.
Support?
I'll support it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We go to the Facilities Development Report. Damon Flowers, Vice President Flowers.
Just a couple updates. The campus security upgrades as a capital project is essentially complete. That was the Phase 3 lockdown system for support areas as well as staff areas. What we're moving into now with that fund is to increase the security cameras for this building. This is one of the few buildings on campus with the activities that it has the fewest number of security cameras. So we're going to adjust that, and the planning and design of that is taking place right now. So we'll be presenting that, the activity, in the next few months to come. The deferred maintenance, the two major projects, they're two kind of large things in the business education building. It's replacing, right now we're replacing the primary boilers for the building. It's been demoed now, and so we're up against timing and the weather to get this all done in the next 4 weeks as we get into October. And we're on schedule to get that completed by mid-October. The other thing in business ed that hasn't started yet, but it's in planning, is we're going to have to vacate one of the, well, actually both floors at different times to replace all the fan terminal units. These are the units that locally control all the airflow and temperature to all the classrooms and all of the spaces in the building. So it's going to be quite an effort. These two projects, the boiler and the fan terminal units, combined are almost $1 million. And so we'll be reporting as we get into the, we're about to go out for bids for that. We hope to start that for just after the fall semester and to start it during the break. And that will close down the floor, the second floor, through the end of winter term. On campus repair and maintenance, one main project that we've just finished or almost finished is a brand new classroom for performing arts in this building just down the hall. That was needed in order to make way for a nursing simulation lab in T&I. So that project is just finishing up right now, and Performing Arts is very happy to now they're consolidated. Most of those courses are taught in this building, so they seem to be happy about that. So that's it.
Questions? Go ahead.
I noticed at the very end, there's a line item here for $60,856 for police interceptor vehicles.
Two.
Did we order those already?
Yes, those are part of current year's capital.
And those are,
To replace the
so that's assuming
campus
you've already bought those,
campus safety
assuming.
vehicles.
Those are public safety vehicles.
Those are public safety, those aren't new police vehicles?
That is correct.
Yes.
Next month, will we not see anything about parking lots? Can you promise
See
that?
anything about parking? Yes, we will not see anything.
Thank you. Then I might come.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? I just want to say, for me, I'm going to say this again, I say it all the time, you've been doing a wonderful job on all these projects and getting them started and keeping them on time and finish them under budget. That's what I like. Thank you very much. Okay, remarks from the Board of Trustees. Bill?
Are we
Anybody?
on that already?
Yes.
We there?
Trustee Hatchett?
I would just like to thank all the people that got the place started again in August and September. It's a huge job for all the deans and all the faculty and all the clericals and all maintenance and everybody to get the bathrooms clean and the lights on, and just thank you very much for doing that. And I've also gotten this food insecurity at WCC, and hope that we're doing something about that. Students who need our help with food. 25% of community college students experience food insecurity, believe it or not. And we need to work on that. Yes?
Phil
Somebody
Snyder, you have something
speak?
to add to that. It's something that the Washtenaw Community College Foundation has been addressing.
I never heard.
Ruth.
Okay, good. This is done by a faculty member report on the, just analyzing the situation. So
Where
have
did
you
you-
seen this? Okay,
Where did you get?
from a faculty member.
Oh, well, we haven't
Yeah,
gotten
yeah.
that.
I don't only have one, but I.
No, I'm just,
I would rather have Phil address it because
Yeah.
Phil has been shepherding a task force on the foundation board addressing student emergency fund, which
You know, right
talks
now-
about food shortages.
can,
She won't let it.
well,
Would you mind if we address that at the next meeting since he's part of the audience?
yeah,
And is that all right with you?
Fine.
yes, okay, thank you.
But we will definitely put that on the agenda. Is that all right with you?
Yes. Trustee DeVarty?
I want to take the opportunity to make a philosophical statement about the issue of police on campus. I don't want to bog down the discussion when we get to that agenda item, so at this point, I just want to read a statement. We have a tremendous cultural problem with policing in this country. We have seen a wave of questionable shootings by police officers throughout the country, often resulting in the unnecessary deaths of many of our African-American countrymen. On Friday, just this past Friday, I went to see the documentary, Whose Streets, about the community response to the shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, as he walked away from a police officer with his hands up. On Saturday, the day after I saw that, a college student at Georgia State was shot and killed by a campus police officer. I'm not in a position to know all the details, but it appears that an emotionally disturbed student provoked a confrontation that resulted in their death, I use that pronoun intentionally, by police shooting, leaving behind several suicide notes. When I served on the Ann Arbor City Council in the mid to late 1980s, as policymakers, the City Council had to repeatedly address the issues of unreasonable use of force by police, not resulting in death, thank you, and by racially discriminatory enforcement of ordinances by the police, by certain individual police officers. These matters took much time and resulted in significant changes to training. These are considerations that I keep in mind as I think about, speak to, and vote on the issue of our campus, our college, Washtenaw Community College, forming a new police force at an annual cost, although it's tagged in our materials at $300,000, that I believe will soon approach $500,000 a year. We have a safe campus. We spend over $1.5 million a year on our existing security force and on what we spend and continue to spend to support and upgrade our infrastructure to make our campus more responsive to threats. WCC does not have on-campus residents. We are not a 24/7 institution. We are not located geographically in an urban environment infested by crime. It remains to be demonstrated to me that there exists any need for police on our campus. Our mission at Washtenaw Community College is to offer access to higher education to people who may have encountered obstacles toward pursuing their educations. We are here, I am here, to open doors of opportunity to our students through education. If even one student is diverted from their educational path toward new opportunities to pursue the rest of their life, to involvement in the criminal justice system instead, because we have police on campus, we will have failed our mission. I'm going to, for the rest of this meeting, until we discuss this issue, we'll be wearing this shirt. Hands up, don't shoot. I can't breathe. No justice, no peace. I wear it in memory of 5 cases that I'm well familiar with. Michael Brown, Freddie Gray, Tamir Rice, Eric Garner, Sandra Bland, and many other unarmed African Americans who have lost their lives through interaction with the police. Thank you.
Any other comments? Well, I would like to give a comment. Last month, I went on the SIMCOG bus tour of Wayne County and Monroe County parks. And I just want to say something really quick. It was very informative and very inspirational of how the little monies that a lot of the communities had, even Wayne County, because there's cash strapped, that SIMCOG helped in developing parks. Also, two things that happened with us on the bus going through, we went the back way going to Monroe, and there was a history lesson that was given to us, an oral history lesson that we did not learn in school, elementary, middle school, or high school. And I wonder why. And I think I know why, but I'm just putting that out there. The history lesson had to do with how people from Detroit and Lansing back in the 17 and 1800s decided that they wanted to eradicate American Indians. And they wanted to do it starting in Detroit. And they wanted to do it from Detroit all the way up to Monroe. And then Monroe is very significant because in Monroe is where Custer had a battle with the Indians. Didn't know that. And there's a lot of things that I'd like to talk about, but this is a different type of subject. But look it up. Find out what happened. It was horrible. It was awful. It was just, people, men, women were crying, listening to this, and what man did to man, and then stole their land. Not only did they want to eradicate them, there was a order from Washington to eradicate these Indians. And they tried to do that, but they didn't get very far. This is in Monroe, Michigan. This is something that we need to look up that we were never taught in school. I just want to say that real quick. The second thing is that I have a lot of things going on. I heard some people talking about trips and people going this way and that way, money could be saved. This is my personal opinion. It has nothing to do with the board members. People go and do what they need as a board member to make this institution better. Bringing back ideas, sharing it with the president and staff. Even staff goes on trips for a reason. Trips are not to be done just because they want to go on a trip and out of town. They can do that on their own. I'm making this statement because we have dedicated ourselves to do this job when we said that we wanted to run and be on this board as a trustee of this institution. I'm not trying to say anything else. I'm just talking for myself. But I want some people here to understand that we like this job. We don't get paid a dime. We don't get paid anything. The only thing we get is a library card. And believe me, I like it. But any case, I just want to make that statement. We're doing our job, and we're trying to do it to the best of our ability, because none of us have any other background in working in an educational institution like we are doing here. We're all elected officials at large, just like anybody else running. So I just want to make that statement. Anybody else want to make a comment? Okay, President.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank those of you who came tonight to speak. I think it's very important. We're very fortunate that we live in a free country and people can give their opinions, and I do appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I thank the board for all that you do. I apologize to you, Sam. I forgot to introduce you, but Sam Veltri, who is our new Vice President of Labor Relations, has his Juris Doctorate in Labor, and his other experiences include HR positions at the Beaumont Health System, McLaren Flint Hospital, and Hospital Corporation in America, and in both hospitals in Tampa and Las Vegas. So thank you so much for joining our team. I'd like to thank all of you. How many of you went to the, may I say
Sure.
this? It's our meeting.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to be talking to them. I'm supposed to be talking to you.
Yeah.
But to the trustees that attended our golf outing, thank you so much. To those of you who also attended, thank you. Phil, please thank the Rose and the whole board for us. Our golf outing on August 14th grossed more than $100,000, which is more than we have ever grossed before. Free College Day is coming up again. It's become very, very popular. Again, it takes a lot of work on part of our faculty and staff to put this on. We will have Cars and Bikes event also on that day. And there's also, and we, of course, always have free classes taught by our faculty and staff, and there's activities for children as well. And if you get a chance, I think it would be great if the board could take a trip to the Ann Arbor Arts Center, or maybe ride a bus, in case the art's not in there anymore, but to see the unbelievable artwork our photography and artwork that has been produced by our faculty members. And I'd like to thank Jennifer Baker, Don Worthman, and Morgan Berry for the work that they put into this event. And that is it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going on to old business, and that is the revisions to Policy 3045, General Education Philosophy and Requirements, as tab E. This is the recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve the revisions to Policy 3045, General Education Philosophy and Requirements as submitted. Is there any discussion? Yes, Doherty.
I was taken by the speaker who spoke to this and urged our opposition. I know we've looked at it in the past, but I do have a couple questions.
Yes.
She was talking about the communication requirement. Right now, there's a communication requirement.
Currently, there's a communication requirement in our general education requirements in our policy.
But if we kept that in Roman numeral 2 here, it says second writing or speech. If we just kept that as a speech or interpersonal communication requirement, wouldn't that, it sounded like that would still meet the requirements of the transfer agreements.
It still does meet the requirements, but currently we have it as a requirement, not as an option that students can choose to take.
I understand that. And she was advocating that we keep it as a requirement.
The problem,
because it would be important to the students to have that knowledge, and her fear that she expressed explicitly was students transferring might not have that communication, might dodge a communication requirement. And I agree that that's something to worry about.
It is in some instances, but one of the things, well, one of the purposes, main purposes that we're presenting the change is that we really want to focus on our students completing. And a lot of our students are choosing to not complete because we have more requirements than the state transfer agreement does. And so, you know, it is not our goal to not think that communication is an important thing for students to learn. And in most of our programs where communication is a core objective, it will still be a part of the program. It just won't be part of our general education requirements. We're not getting rid of communication. It's still an option, and many of our programs will keep it in their program requirements. And so in our discussions, those fears have been discussed, but we really do want to focus on our students completing an associate's degree and not leaving here without completing that program, completing their programs. So right now, students are leaving because we have extra stuff in our general education requirements that they don't need, that don't align to the Michigan transfer agreement.
So to complete their associate degree, they need 30 credits, right? Or do they need more? 60 credits?
60 credits.
Including 30 general ed.
Depending on the program, yes.
Mike, oh, go ahead.
How many programs require speech?
Offhand, I can think about 3 of them that require speech as part of your programs. And our biggest program, which is one of our biggest programs, which is business, would never take speech out of that program. You know, so, you know, it's not that students are not going to get speech in other courses and in the programs that we think it is completely, highly required, necessary. It still will stay in those programs.
So speech might be required in the other 30 credits that are part of that program's curriculum?
Correct.
And then they would opt to maybe take a second writing class instead?
Correct.
For the general ed?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
And maybe I'm exaggerating, but it's clear to me that this is a political tool to water down gen ed so that students will complete. And I understand that, and we have no choice but to go along with the Michigan. But I'd just like to state for the record that I think this is a complete watered down of what general ed is intended to do. Watering down only one class in composition, maybe not speech, maybe not something else. It's watered down, gen ed, so that we can have more completers. We can have more transfer. Be that as it may, we're not going to change that, is my point. But I would like to remind people that when this college was founded, there was one requirement, one course requirement for gen ed, and that was political science. And the way this country is going now, I think that particular requirement needs to come back. I know it won't, because we now need more completers. So we water down gen ed, so we'll have some more. I think it's a shame, but that's the direction we're going in, obviously.
I will say one thing. Washtenaw Community College is working with the changes that the state is making. It is not our intent to water those things down.
I understand that.
And I think that when we first had the conversations about this, a lot of this was around beefing up a lot of the sciences. So you'll notice that there is a lot more science in some areas. And I think that it is incumbent of us as a college to figure out and make sure that all of those goals and objectives that students should have leaving here, we're constantly assessing and figuring those things out. And I'm confident that we will still do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no critical thinking anymore. We don't have to worry about that anymore.
Well, I want to get back to the action table page here. We're going to be voting on the Board of Trustees approve the revision to Policy 3045, General Education Philosophy and Requirements. Can I hear a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion and supported. Any further discussion on this item? I do. are we going to see any further reduction in some of our, I mean, they've taken away history. They're watering down some of our basic things, just like, it's just coming to my mind now, of the math, of how you can skirt around math now. Now that we have a new secretary of, or whatever she is, of education, I know I'm grabbing out here, but do we have any idea what our curriculum could look like so that we can be able to still deliver the best education possible?
Do you want me to answer, or do you want to answer?
No, you go, I'll let you go first.
You'll let me go
No, you go
first.
first, you go
Thanks.
first. You have the right answer, I don't know.
You know, we will never water down our curriculum. We will never, ever water down what we offer. Students will always have that option and opportunity to take what they think is important. However, education is changing. The workforce is changing. The skill sets that are required and to work today, I'm talking about today and into the future, are completely different. The employers, not only employers like GE, but, and I know, I'm from the time when the history, my minor was social science. So I do understand the importance and value it. But everything's changing. What they're saying now is, we want students to have more coding. We want elementary students to have coding. Elementary. What they are saying now is, you have to refine all these courses, even like, remember in elementary schools, handwriting. They don't want to waste any time on anything. They're also saying you spend too much time in elementary school and high school, that all that could be reduced with more efficiencies in changing, that are efficiencies in teaching. Is it going to change? Yes. Do we have any idea what it's going to look like? Maybe that much of a glimpse, but I don't know. But we certainly aren't going to do a wholesale, we're just not going to walk away from what traditionally made us a good college. We will always have that. But yes, it's going to change. And students only have so much money. We talk about completion. We always talk about affordability. We talk about all that. And it's our goal to get a student that comes here that says, I want to transfer. This is the Michigan Transfer Agreement. While I agree with you, our goal is to say to a student, all these other colleges have made these deals with these universities, to say, if you take this course, these 30 hours, we will accept them. So that means our students can go through quickly, easily, and they can focus their dollars, their small amount of Pell dollars, on getting out of here in 30 hours. And isn't that what we want? We want them to go on and pursue their transfer. So, well, I would love to be on, this is one of those issues I could sit on either side of this table. I really could, but I understand. And to answer your question, it's going to change.
Okay. Any other discussion? Yes.
Yeah, I would then suggest that under outcomes on page 2, you put graduates of Washtenaw Community College associate's degree programs will possess the skills and knowledge they need to pursue their chosen careers or educational studies, period. Because we're not encouraging them to be responsible citizens. We're not encouraging communication, intellectual inquiry skills, or the rest of it. I think we need a period after educational studies. That's the direction we're going in. I'm not saying I like it, but that is the direction, as you just said, and I think we should be honest about that and put a period after educational studies.
Okay. Okay. I don't know. What do you want me to talk?
I don't think that's in the spirit of what we still teach here. And I think that when you think about education, Just because we're getting rid of a class does not mean we're not teaching those concepts, like reading and writing across the curriculum. And so I think that exactly how we started this conversation about watering down what we do here, I think taking that out of this document will water those things down. And I think we should maintain an expectation that this is exactly what we do, whether there are 20 courses that do it or one, is that this is what we do at the college. And I think it's important that that statement stay there.
Okay, yes.
I actually agree with the VPI. We may be going in a different direction, but I think this should be, that sentence should stay in there. It's a really important sentence. I think that's what our education is about here. And Ruth, I hate to disagree with you
No,
on
it's
this.
okay. It's just, I mean,
I
think it's a wonderful thing.
I don't
to
want to support taking that out.
develop responsible citizens, but we're not encouraging our students to do that
Well-
when these are the requirements. And people with very little Pell money and very little time aren't going to read that paragraph about being a responsible citizen and needing to take a poli-sci class. They're going to look at, all I have to do is what's up here. And so I think it's being dishonest, that's all I'm saying. And everyone can disagree with me, but I think it's a dishonest sentence.
Okay, any other discussion? Call the question?
Chair Knight Morton,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fleming,
Yes.
Treasurer Milliken,
Yes.
Secretary Davis.
Yes.
Trustee DeVarty,
Yes.
Trustee Hatcher.
Yes.
Trustee Linda.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was a good discussion on that one. New business. Review of fiscal year 17 audit, Vice President Johnson. The recommendation is to the board to receive the fiscal 17 audit report as submitted.
Thank you. In your package under this tab, you should have four documents. One is a PowerPoint, which I will go through a summary of our audited financial results. And then there'll be three other documents, our audited financial report for the college, the single audit report, and then the letter from the auditors around internal controls and their findings. And we'll ask Michelle Fowler from Raymond to go with us. It's the PowerPoint. There should have been a PowerPoint that you had up at one time. That's it. I think it's a PDF. Perfect. Thank you. So just to go through in summary, the auditor, and just to remind the board, what we had gone through in the monthly report was the general fund. The audit report includes all the other funds of the college. So the restricted fund, where all our grant activities come through, the pension fund, where all the pension accounting stuff, GASB 68 stuff comes through. We have our plant fund, the auxiliary fund, which is the fitness center, and then the totals. So what this addresses is the totals and the parts of those totals. We went through under tab C, just the general fund portion of it. So we'll go through in summary, which was the college had a net change in position of 6.3 million, and in that buried was a kind of a negative amount of 1.2 million related to GASB 68 stuff. So we actually had about a 7.5 million positive change prior to GASB 68. Speaking of GASB 68, the pension liability, which is our slice of the $26 billion unfunded liability in the MEPSR's pension fund, our slice of that went up from 110.7 million to 116.6 million. And of that 6 million increase, about 3 million, about half that amount, was strictly related to the fact that our share of that total plan, it went up just a fraction. And it's because it's all based on your covered payroll. And as we've maintained a strong payroll here, in other school systems across the state have been forced with finding ways to reduce their payroll. we have a larger percentage of the total covered payroll for the state. And as a result, we have a larger slice of this unfunded obligation. So about $3 million of that increase is that. And the rest of the $3 million is just due to changes in plan performance for that. If you look at the total net assets of the college, they were about $68 million. Of that $68 million, $135 million that was in the plant fund, so the capital assets of the college, which left about a negative $67 million for all the rest of the funds, largely the general fund. And of that amount, buried in there was $101 million negative amount related to pensions, right? So if you kind of back that out, we had about a $29 million unrestricted fund balance that was not committed. Our uncommitted general fund unrestricted fund balance went up about $2 million year over year. And that $2 million roughly translates to what we went through under tab C back in the first one. Another point of reference, another measure of goodness for the college is around the composite financial index. And to remind the board, the Higher Learning Commission asks us to report this each year. And they ask us to report that both after the impacts of GASB 68 and then before the impacts of GASB 68. On a before GASB 68 basis, they like to have institutions at least at a 3.0. Ours is 4.54. And that was an increase from last year because of the positive results that we've already gone through. However, after the impact of GASB 68, it's a negative 1.56. So just to remind the board of where we are regarding that. Look a little bit more at the details around the net position. You look at the bottom line, line 13. We're up about $6.33 million, and we already talked about the pensions. And the pensions included an increase in that liability of $4.7 million. And then also you'll note line 5 up on the slide and line 9 are deferred inflows and outflows. Most of that activity relates to GASB 68. And it really is just the kind of the deferred impact of both positive events around pension activity and negative events around pension activity. And those are, it's the accounting rules ways of smoothing the impact of that over time. And so you put it on our balance sheet and then you amortize that out over time. And so that's why you see growth in those areas. If we go to the next page for operating results, you will see that we had an increase, as I mentioned, about $6.3 million. And that you'll note on line 1 that our operating revenues went up just a little bit, about $1.1 million of that. Most of that increase was in property tax revenues. And we've spoken with the board about those positive trends. If you look at our operating expenses, we break that out into two pieces here. One is just the impact of pension expense, and you'll note that pension expense from a GASB 68 standpoint actually went down a little bit, as you see on line 2, and that our other operating expenses actually went up about $4 million. The board might recall last year we had a one-time adjustment in our accounting methods that relate to accrued payroll for faculty. And that had a positive impact last year of about $2.2 million. So if you look at line 3, the 2016, that actually, normalizing for that would have been closer to $113.5 million compared to the $115.4 million for this year. So when you think about it in that terms, we had about a $1.9 million increase in operating expenses once you normalize for accounting adjustments and you take out the impact of GASB 68, which is non-cash. And so it was about a $1.7 million increase in operating expenses year over year for the college. If you go to the next slide, slide 6, for operating revenues, when we look at the biggest source of increase, you'll note that that tuition and fees went up a little bit, about $700,000. A portion of that was a slight increase in tuition rates, not for in-district, but for all our out-district and out-state and international and distance learning for those. And the other piece has to do with what we call the scholarship allowance. And netted against this tuition and fees revenues are monies that we receive on behalf of our students that go net and pay for tuition. So for instance, Pell money that students receive. It just so happens, once again, year over year, that our students received in total about $1 million less Pell money. About half that amount would have gone directly to pay for tuition. The other half the amount would have gone for living expenses. So that portion that went against tuition was the piece that then netted against that tuition and helped to raise that tuition amount. I'll also point out on this page that auxiliary services were up about $400,000, and that's the fitness center. We had said we had a real strong year in terms of community enrollment at the fitness center. And so that once again, the fitness center performance, if you look at it on a net basis, it earned enough money to be able to cover not only the debt service costs, but all the deferred maintenance that relate to that. If we go to the next slide for non-operating revenue, you will see that we had Pell grant money actually went down, as I mentioned, about $1 million. That state appropriations actually went up a fair amount of money. That really was for 3 reasons. One, the very first agenda item for the board around the strategic local value. So the college got, once again, a very strong percentage increase, and that helped. The second piece of that was now flowing through this line item is all the state funding that's to make whole for the lost personal property tax revenue that now comes through as state funding. So $750,000 of that increase in state appropriations has to do with the make whole amount of money that the college received for lost personal property tax revenue. And then the last piece of that had to do with the increased MEPSR's support and the recognition of that support last year that had a positive impact on this year. It was kind of a timing difference in MEPSR's support that we had. If you look at the next slide for other revenue, for the current year, the biggest item, of course, was the state capital grants, the CC STEP grant, and that was $4.4 million. And on slide 10 for cash flows, you will see that we had a positive cash flow for the year of $2.5 million. The way that I like to look at it is if you kind of net the first 2 line items, the operating activities and the non-capital financing activities. Kind of buried in the non-capital financing activities is our property tax revenue, our state appropriations. If you kind of net those 2, you see we had about positive $9 million of cash flow for the current year. And so what do we do with that $9 million? Well, we spent about $5.8 million on capital that the board had approved. And that left us with roughly $2.5 million for this year for us, which was positive cash flow. And then lastly, the general fund summary for the board on slide 11. On the revenue side, once again, you will see that about half of our revenues comes from local government. That's our property tax revenue. About a third comes from tuition and fees, 14% from state aid. And then when you look at our expenses, instruction is about 47%, instructional support 13%, and student services 13%. Those 3 slices make up about 70% of our total budget that go in direct support for our students.
So with that, that's a summary of the audit results. And before I ask Michelle right over here to come up and for her to walk through the other statements, other questions?
Any questions? Yes. Trustee Hatcher?
Oh, I just, it's a little thing, but on the pie charts, it always shows the other sources as 6%. And I assumed that that was grants. And the grants is always 8%. So is it 6 or 8, or is it different?
There are different pieces that are included in these in the way that we presented here, because this is just for the general fund. When we were looking before, it was for the total college from all the other funds. So this is just a general fund view, and not the total college view.
Okay.
Yes. DeVarty?
Cash flows, we're showing a loss on investing activities every year.
Where are you, David?
Is that that's on page 10, cash
10,
flows.
okay.
So I'm wondering, I understand there's somewhere else where the investment net operating revenues, unrealized gain on investments, but I recognize that are securities that we'll get the value out of them when they're redeemed.
Yep.
But on paper, we're showing a paper loss. I recognize that loss, but I'm curious on the cash flows, what causes those losses?
Sure, and this actually isn't a loss, this is a use of cash. And so what this is showing, after the board had approved our change in policy, right, a couple years ago, you'll see in fiscal 16, we actually had a 3.5 million use of cash, because we were trying to get back to fully invested. And so what this is showing in 17, we had a little bit more yet to invest.
I'm just understanding what the numbers are. Thank you.
Great. Other questions? Then I'd like to turn over time to Michelle Fowler, who will then present the actual findings from the audit that Raymond did.
I just want to make a comment. I am concerned about the 14% in state aid.
Pardon me?
I said I'm just concerned about the 14% in state aid.
Well, and that is an amount that we recognize in the annual report. We have to economic factors that impact the college, and that is an area that we address. If you read that narrative, we know that the college, like all other institutions, are potentially at risk for, as it relates to the state trying to balance its budget.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle. There. You're right here. All right.
He's been here since 5 o'clock.
Please. Here's the 3 documents are off on the right there.
Okay, well, I just have my piece of paper here since there isn't a lot of room up here. So again, thank you for that introduction, Vice President Johnson. My name is Michelle Fowler, and I am the engagement partner for Washtenaw Community College's audit. I was here back in the spring and presented to all of you the pre-audit communications, and now all of you have received draft documents as a result of our audit. You have that in your packages. So as Vice President Johnson had indicated before, you have the audited financial statements for the college. You also have a single audit report, and so that includes all the federal expenditures for the year that the college has. And then also there's a letter, there are required communications in there that we need to make to the full board. So I'm going to go through this very quickly since Vice President Johnson actually went through all of the numbers and the results for fiscal 2017, so I'm going to focus on the actual audit results that we have. And then I want to make sure that I leave enough time. If any of the board members have any questions on any 3 of these documents, I can make sure that I answer those. So I'm not going to go through and scroll through all the documents that are included in your packets. So as far as the results, I am happy to say that the college did receive a clean opinion for the audit this year. and then also received a clean opinion for the single audit. And so what that means for the single audit is that there are compliance requirements that the college needs to follow in accordance with those federal guidelines. And so we looked at the student financial aid cluster as a major program. Student financial aid accounts for $33 million out of the $35 million of federal money that the college spends. So we looked at most of the dollars for the year, and I'm happy to report there weren't any findings there. So we did just have one minor comment that we did note, and that is in your letter, but that has already been corrected by personnel of the college, so we don't have any further recommendations as it relates to that. So that's very, very positive. Also getting back to the financial statement audit, it is important to point out to you that we did not have any adjustments as it related to our audit procedures. So what that means is that we didn't come in and require management to make any changes to the numbers. So certainly a very clean audit. Also, in the letter that we provide to you, we need to talk about any internal control matters, and we did not have anything that we had to communicate to you in writing as it relates to the financial statement audit. So that means we don't have any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control to report to the board. So that's basically the findings. Does anybody have any questions on that before I just point out one thing on the report? Okay. So if you remember, when I was back here in the spring, we talked a little bit about accounting pronouncements that are going to be significant to the college. So there wasn't anything that impacted the college in 2017. So these statements that you have, everything is pretty much the same as far as presentation, disclosure. It just reflects what the numbers are for the fiscal year. The big thing that's going to be impacting the college next year for fiscal 2018 would be GASB 75. So Vice President Johnson, when he was providing his presentation to you for the finances for the year, he kept talking a lot about GASB 68. And so that would be the pension piece of an accounting standard where the college has to record its portion of the net pension liability for the state-run system. What GASB 75 is, that's basically the second piece, and that is going to be for the other post-employment benefits or the health care. So starting in 2018, the college is going to have to record their proportionate share of what is called that net OPEB liability. And so the college was required, because this is going to have a significant impact, to disclose that upcoming pronouncement. So that is in footnote 1 at the very end of footnote 1 in the audited financial statements. Management has also went through and estimated, we don't have any information yet from the Office of Retirement Services, which basically oversees this plan. So that's where the information comes from, what that amount is going to be. But based on what that unfunded OPEB liability is, and just based on what the college's covered payroll is, estimating about $30 million right now. It'd be at least $30 million. So that's going to be another impact on the financial statements. So that will further reduce the unrestricted net position that the college has. Now, similar to GASB 68, and I'll point this out again, this is for book purposes only. This is presentation to put this liability on the college's books. This does not change the amount that the college is required to contribute on behalf of its employees for any health care benefits as part of MIPSRs. Similar to the pension, doesn't change the contributions, does not change the cash outflow of the institution. So it's really important for you to understand. So when you go to look at your budget going forward, not just next year, but the year after, this won't be included in there, because it's not going to have anything to do with the cash that has to get contributed. So I just want to make sure that you understand that. Yes?
I understand that this is for book purposes, but is it conceivable that a future state legislature could change requirements and all of a sudden we'd be saddled with having to pony up with some of that money?
Well, actually, what's being contributed right now is based on these estimates of the unfunded amounts for both pension and for the health care. So that's how the system has been designed. And correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, are they hoping this is going to get amortized in what, 20 years?
About 25 years.
25 years, that it will be,
So right now, we're making a contribution on the pension, but we're not on the other benefits.
No, we got both.
It's on both?
both.
Okay.
Yeah.
So out of the money that we're kicking in now, it's for both the GASB 68 and 75?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
It just took the Governmental Accounting Standards Board a little longer to say this also needs to get done for the OPEB piece. But this is something that, entities that follow the Financial Accounting Standards Board or for-profit entities, even nonprofit entities, have had to put these obligations on their books for both pension and for OPEB. What's very different about this is that the college participates in a cost-sharing plan. It's something that's run by the state. It's a statewide system. For those other for-profits and nonprofits, it's usually their own plan. So that's something that's a little bit different here.
I guess one follow-up question. You see a lot of audits from other institutions. Do we stand comparatively in good shape with this pension obligation, or are we?
Oh, yes, because all of the employers that participate in this have their portion. But it is true that for the institutions who have higher payroll, and then of course because of that they have to make more contributions, they have a higher percentage of the total contributions, and that's how the state determines your proportionate share of the liability.
Right, I understand, but when I'm looking in terms of our financial health going forward versus, I mean, I feel good about what we have and where, and our commitment, and that we can meet the commitment going forward. And I'm just wondering how we stack up against other comparable institutions.
Definitely the college is solid as it relates to that.
Okay.
Yes. I know I went through everything very quickly. Does anybody have any other questions on the documents that were provided to you?
Well, my eyes are kind of glassed over the way you went fast. It's so quick. But you did great. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions for her?
I think she took care of it.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I do want to take the opportunity. I think it's important that the board knows that, we received full cooperation from any of the college personnel that we worked at during the audit, and so we definitely appreciate that.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Yes.
I move that we receive the federal year 17 audit report as submitted.
This is just a discussion.
This is just a discussion.
Oh, do we do the vote next time? I'm looking at.
I'm at the wrong place here. Oh, it's discussion.
You're right, it says discussion, okay.
Yes.
I'll move it next time.
Yes, thank you. Okay, we're going down to tab G, 2019 through 2023 WCC Capital Outlay Plan, Vice President Flowers. This is discussion.
Okay.
Yes, you have in your packet our 5-year capital outlay plan for fiscal 2019 through 2023. This is an update from last year. This is, of course, pursuant to Public Act 431, which is the Management and Budget Act, which requires all public colleges and universities to submit this document annually. We present it now in September because it needs to be approved for October and has to be on our transparency page by October 31st. So hence it's on the agenda tonight. There are 4 areas I just want to speak to briefly. Basically, these are updates. On the instructional programming side, new programs have been added. I would ask the VPI Hearns to speak for a second of some of the new things, programs that we've added this fiscal year.
So this past year, we added a cybersecurity program and a digital strategy program, which you all have seen, and it is included in the state report and listed as new programs.
Yes. Section C, which is staffing and enrollment. Enrollment, of course, is a number that is a moving target right now. We have a final number that won't occur until the middle of October. And so if you notice in your packet that we have X's for the enrollment numbers right now because we don't have the final numbers. We will have those numbers when we present the final document to the state. But I'm pleased to report that our numbers as of today are up about 1.2% in headcount and similarly in credit hours.
Highest in the state.
Say that again.
I'm here, only in the state, right? Highest in the state.
Highest in the state, yes.
Enrollment.
Enrollment.
Increase.
Majority of the colleges, not majority, I would say 90% of the colleges are down. All right, so we are the only one carrying the same positive numbers.
Wow.
So other numbers included in this area in terms of the students enrolled in certain programs, the percentages, again, until we have the final numbers, we don't have those percentages to put in place. Section E is the facilities assessment, which is basically looking at how do we use the space we have and how do we take care of the space we have. And so there are two kind of major areas in this section, one being the utilization. As the board may know, we did do a comprehensive space utilization study a year ago, and which told us what kind of spaces, what time of days classes are being held in which spaces. We do know that based on the comparative numbers from last year to this year, that our utilization, at least in the classroom, is down to about 63%, over 68% a year ago. We may attribute that to increase in distance learning courses, and therefore we do have additional space that could be repurposed for other programs that may be on the upswing as far as enrollment. The other part of this is the 25-page document, which I won't get into in detail. It's in your packet, which is a deferred maintenance activity on every single building on campus. And it lists the facilities condition index, which tells us what kind of condition our buildings are in. And we try to get to a level 5%, which would be good. Anything between 5 and 10 is fair, and over 10 would be poor. We do have a few in that category, but the average is in the fair category of 8.3%. The last category is the implementation plan. And the state asks us, what is your priority one project if you were to ask for capital outlay dollars?
No, go ahead. I just wanted to introduce it before we turn it over. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And that project, as we've indicated, is also part of the strategic plan. It has been on the strategic plan for a number of years now, and that's expansion of a Center for Nursing Excellence, and we're calling it the Nursing and Allied Health Sciences Center of Excellence. And that would be, because most of those programs are in the T&I building, that would be the ideal location, repurposing some of the existing space in T&I for an expansion of a program that is in high demand and has high wages and that we see a lot of growth potential in. And so we are proposing a 22,800 square foot renovation of the T&I building at a cost of approximately, total cost of $5.8 million. And to get into the details of some of the rationale for the center, I would call on Dean Reeds to speak to that.
Good evening.
Hi.
I think I have to wake everybody up because we're all dozing off a little bit. I feel like I'm like the last speaker of the day at a conference or something. But I do want to share some things with you about healthcare, in particular in the nation as well as in Washtenaw County here. And a couple of these I'm quoting from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, but it's probably not a secret to anybody that according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, healthcare field is the largest industry in the United States today. Healthcare occupations are projected to grow 19% from the year 2014 to 2024, which is faster than the average for all occupations combined in the United States. something that's really notable for Washtenaw Community College is that most of these healthcare careers take less than 4 years for someone to receive training for them. So it makes the community college the prime site to train these healthcare providers. Most of them are either certificate programs or associate degree programs that we're looking for in our own community. And we know there's a large demand for healthcare workers, and in Washtenaw County alone, we have 3 major industry leaders in healthcare just within miles of our campus. We have St. Joseph Mercy Hospital across the street. We have University of Michigan Health Center, and we have the Veterans Administration of Ann Arbor. And most notably, I'll say that our U of M has just recently, this spring, achieved magnet status, which means they have 80% of their nurses are bachelor's prepared, which is what a lot of hospitals are going for nowadays. St. Joe's is trying to achieve magnet status right now as well. Has not achieved it yet, but they're on track probably to receive that too. So really important that we think, when we think about training our students here as nurses in an associate degree, that we are always looking forward to that bachelor's prepared nurse. So that's why we're doing the collaborative program with EMU. So our nurses start the program knowing that they're going to complete with a bachelor's degree. So we have a trajectory path for them to follow, so that we're, and that's a national initiative that we have. The Institute of Medicine, as well as other nursing entities, have designated that that's a goal for us to shoot for, is by the year 2020, that we have 80% of all of our nurses are bachelor's prepared. And I share these statistics with you to shed some light on the importance of why we have an increased need for some space and for growth of the nursing and health programs here at Washtenaw Community College. Another necessity is to increase simulation on campus here. We need to increase our sim labs where we can have nursing and health students can work collaboratively in actual hospital rooms with patient actors and human simulators. Simulators which can mimic endless supplies of diseases and illnesses which a student may never have the opportunity to experience while in the clinical setting here in our community. The Michigan Board of Nursing has also announced that up to 15% of our clinical time in training our nurses can now be performed in a simulation lab. And that wasn't done lightly. That was after many years of research looking at outcomes of students that are performing in simulation labs versus clinical sites. Clinical sites in Washtenaw County are in high demand as we have to compete with the University of Michigan and Eastern Michigan for those clinical sites. So they're at a real premium, but simulation will help us be able to use less of the clinical sites and more training in our sim labs. So the proposed capital outlay will assist with needed updates in needed sim labs and space needed to keep our nursing and health programs top-notch and responsive to our community demand for the increase of health employees.
Yes. Could you just mention the Center for Excellence?
Oh, yes. How could I forget that? This is something that actually nursing faculty have been talking about for a while. It's something that we've wanted to do. And the National League of Nursing, which we are members of at the college, has what they call, you can be acknowledged or nationally noted as being an NLN Center of Excellence. And so it's kind of like an accreditation process. They'll come out, they'll do a site visit. We have to write up a whole, pretty much a book, kind of like an accreditation. We have to collect data and prepare for this visit. And then they'll come out, do an initial site visit. They'll give us recommendations. And then we'll receive word if we are, this whole process takes about 1.5 years. I make it sound quick, but the good news is I feel really confident that the things we have in place, we're doing some real innovative things with nursing, having the collaborative program and such, that I feel like we'll be able to accomplish this. And I should mention our nursing faculty had an opportunity to go to the National League of Nursing Conference in California. They just returned this week and came back very, very excited about pursuing this. So we're very happy.
And how many are there in the country of community colleges?
Okay. There's only 2 community colleges that have achieved this so far. So primarily, they're universities that achieve this status. So we might be number 3, we're hoping. We actually feel pretty confident that we will be.
Oh, that's great. Yes.
So when we do, I'm sorry.
Trustee DeVardi?
So I know we recently voted to go with the sim labs.
Yes.
And now you're putting in the capital outlays to increase our commitment with those, which I'm for.
Yes.
It was seemed
Well,
like a real
I think
positive.
Damon mentioned, we're working on, right now, Damon and I are working on design of a large simulation lab that would house the human simulator that we were able to purchase, that you approved.
Just one,
Just one, hopefully more in the future, as well as we're going to be using live actors and actresses in the sim lab as well.
Okay.
So ideally, where we'd like to place the new sim lab would be in this center of excellence in the renovation. Now, one thing we're thinking about that could mitigate even the cost of this is to start planning for this center in the T&I building with the idea of kind of maybe doing it over time. Because when you do a capital outlay, you're sort of presenting it in sort of the big picture. This is what we'd like to have as a major project. It almost, $6 million is pretty significant. If we could kind of build on this incrementally, build this first simulation lab now, the board's approved the equipment, we have it in our campus repair and maintenance budget to build it. I mentioned earlier about the music appreciation lab being named. That was to make way for this simulation lab, but ideally we could put it in the building where it would be as part of the bigger picture. And maybe we could actually almost do this capital project if it were over 3 or 4 years, just with our internal funding. Because the Sims lab that we're going to do is about $250,000. If you do 3 or 4 of those, and we can actually see what the growth patterns are, do we need 3, do we need 4, based on the enrollment and so forth. So rather than just kind of wait for the state to maybe decide on giving us the money, we could do it incrementally ourselves and actually see what works and how big it really needs to be.
Okay.
I guess I had follow-up questions. So these capital investments we're making to make a stronger program, will they, I know clinical placements has been a limitation on on our enrollments. We can't enroll more students unless we have places for them to have clinical placements. Do the sim labs reduce that requirement? Will we have opportunities to increase how many students we can enroll in the programs with this?
Let me give you an example of, like, for this fall semester alone, this is just nursing, none of the other health programs. I had to have 80 clinical sites to place our students in. And this is using simulation. So by having sim labs, we can take, Michigan Board of Nursing has said, we can take those clinicals. We might have sent all nursing students to clinical 40 hours a week. Now we can send them to a clinical site 20 hours a week and do the other 20 in the simulation lab. So it has allowed us already to increase our program. We went from 200 nursing students to 300 by using simulations.
And that's a recent increase.
Recent, yes.
And are we still, I know we had a huge waiting list, or that we stopped doing a waiting
We
list.
don't have a waiting list, we have competitive
Right, so
admissions now.
are we still, what percentage of applications to nursing are you, with the increase, it's a 50% increase from
Right.
200 to 300. So what percentage of the applicants are we able to bring on board at this point?
I could get those numbers for you, but I don't have them right now, but I'm going to tell you that we're definitely taking a lot more students, so we're not seeing as many on the wait list as what we had before. I mean, I recall when we had over 100 people on the wait list.
Right.
And that's not happening anymore. So.
Okay, Trustee DeVardi? I mean, talk so much. Okay, Trustee Davis.
Well, he asked one of the questions that I had in mind, but you see any increase in male applicants for the nursing program? Because
We are.
males
We're
so
seeing a big increase
needed.
in males interested in coming into the profession. So a lot of second career males are coming into the profession. So
And,
we actually have a student group for male nurses, so we're really pushing.
I'm sorry,
that.
you have what?
We actually have a student organization on
student.
campus
okay.
that is about men in nursing, so.
Any of the diverse backgrounds?
very more diverse than most nursing programs, actually. And we're trying to match that with our faculty being more diverse. So we've been doing some intentional hiring of more diverse faculty, because
Oh,
in the
I'm glad
past,
to
we've
hear
not
that.
had very
Okay,
diverse
good.
faculty members for nursing. And so I think we made some big changes in that, so.
Excellent.
Trustee Hatcher.
So I noticed that the growth was healthcare, which is what we're talking about, and also in computer science. So they don't need more space, the computer science people? I mean, that was listed as one of the major growth areas, but they don't need more space like the nursing needs more space.
No, because there's actually more lab space that has been freed up from other courses, like our BOS program. They're using a lot less space. They have more classes online, and they're not seeing enrollment growth in that program. So there's capacity in different places where people can be moved around, or classrooms can be moved around. And in the CIS program, they simply need lab space, and that's a lot easier to make changes and adjustments to than it is for a sim lab.
So they're doing okay with their space?
They are doing good.
And so are we asking for 5.8 million from the state, or are we saying we can handle it in ourselves?
That's the request. I mean, this could take 2-3 years. In the meantime, very much like the Advanced Transportation Center, I mean, we initially went in with a $12.5 million project. It was, we kind of scaled it back based on the CC STEP grant.
Where is that? Did we get anything for that Advanced Transportation Center?
We got the funding for it to go into schematic design and programming, and we will be doing that next phase very shortly.
So that's the design phase, and then there's an allocation.
That is correct.
The state makes an allocation after that.
Well, there's another design development phase after the schematic design, and then we go into the request
So that's
for
in the
construction.
pipeline, and this is the beginning of the pipeline?
Yes, the very beginning.
Okay.
And that was reduced from the 12.5 to 4 million.
Right, and I have one more question. What happened to the master plan people thing? What are they doing?
They're gathering data right now. I mean, they've been on campus
And so that's not, doesn't have any effect of this?
Not for the
This year.
Health Center of Excellence, no, because that's an interior renovation project. But the planners are looking, for the master plan, are looking really opportunities in spatial growth for the whole campus. So they're looking for more additions or new buildings. And that's part of what they're going to do. But they're not really kind of dealing in the kind of the micro level of individual spaces or floors within buildings.
I just want to say thank you so much, Dean Greaves. You did a very good job, and I wish you guys luck in trying to get this going. I just want to add this little caveat in. When I first started, nursing was just actually, really, when I worked at the county as a counselor, and people would come in to me for funding to come to WCC to go into the nursing program. They were on a waiting list that was 3 to 5 years at that time.
That is factual. That is very factual.
That is very factual. And I found it so disheartening because I didn't want to have people come here, but they were begging me to do that, and I did. But then they eventually got tired and they went to Baker College and then got their degree. So say that to say that now we're starting to move it along a little bit better, and I'm glad to hear that. Thank you so much. Okay, our time is really getting short here, and we got some more issues to go. It is 9 o'clock. We are going to, let's see here. We're going to, the next one with Damon is the engineering services contract for the SIMCOG non-motorized pathway project, tab H.
Right, so we've gone through an RFP process for the civil engineering services for this project. The allocation for the grant through MDOT was that the college would participate with about 20% of the cost, and that cost are these fees. And so we had 7 firms who were interested. All these firms were MDOT certified. They've done similar projects to this for both the colleges, universities, as well as municipal governments. And so really the only discrepancy that we could see looking at them was really the cost differential. And 2 were within $1,000 of each other. That's how close they were. And so we're recommending Johnson & Anderson Engineering of Waterford because they were, all things being equal, were the least cost and were as qualified as the other 3, and the other 3 were pretty equal other than the cost. So we went with the lower cost to recommend.
Are there any questions? This is discussion time, so we can... I just want to say, through my involvement, through the colleges being a part of the SIMCOG organization and the board graciously letting me to be on their board, this is one of the results right here. I was on the committee to select different projects for southeastern Michigan. And this project, I heard about it. Damon and I had even talked about it prior to this happening. And I don't know if it's just my presence that was on the board or not, but it did get passed, and with flying colors. And I'm just so happy that this college is able to utilize the funding from them. We had to put up some money on our own, but the process is very interesting of how they do this. And just real quick, it's not an easy process. You apply for it, but it's in a year to the next year before you get the funding. I say that because we were fortunate. Damon applied for it, and then that next year, this year, he applied for it last year, and as of January, February, we were awarded it, and now we're getting ready to do it. So it was pushed through, and I'm very happy for this. Yes.
How soon is this expected to begin?
Next season, next construction season in the spring. So we do the engineering or contract for it. MDOT really manages and lets all the contracts, and the Washtenaw County Road Commission actually is going to manage the on-site supervision along with our engineering firm. So it would start, if they let the project, depends on the completion time, we're thinking the engineering will be done by the end of November, and we can get on MDOT's construction list soon enough. If they let it by January, the project hopefully would start in May and be completed by August of 2018.
So this pathway, I've seen pathways, sidewalks, walkways, which would have you one side, the right side of that would be for pedestrians. And then, just like how this is, one side is walking pedestrians, the other side is like for bicycles.
Mm-hmm.
So is that how this pathway is constructed?
It's going to be 10 foot wide, how we segregate in terms of the bicycles versus walkers. I think that we'll have some certain discretion in doing that. But it'll be 10 foot wide, it'll be a porous pavement, and it'll sort of go around the berm, which is a hill right now near St. Joe's. And we're going to have to build some retaining walls to hold the earth and go around our trees so we don't lose any trees along the path. And they'll have to do all of the engineering to make sure it's handicapped also, so the slopes won't be too high and so forth. So all that'll be worked out through the engineering.
Okay. So I trust that we will be able to see a sketch drawing, maybe on a napkin or something. Get an idea.
I'll show you the completed engineering.
Okay.
I'm going to ask a question if the board feels comfortable in voting on this tonight. I know it says discussion.
I'm good with
What is this?
H.
Any, anyone has to say
I'm
anything?
comfortable with voting on it.
You're comfortable? Everyone? Okay. Well, I'd like to call the question. The recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve an engineering services contract with Johnson & Anderson Engineering for an amount not to exceed $77,682, contingent upon the college administration obtaining a satisfactory contract with the firm.
Also move.
Okay, it's been moved
Second.
and seconded. Roll call.
Chairman Knight Morton,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fleming,
Yes.
Treasurer Milliken,
Yes.
Secretary Davis,
Yes.
Trustee DeVarty,
Yes.
Trustee Hatcher,
Yes.
Trustee Landau.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, Now we're going down to number 4, tab I. And that is the resolution on the establishment of a Washtenaw Community College law enforcement agency. Linda Blakey.
For your review tonight, we have a proposed resolution to establish a law enforcement agency at the college, along with the Public Safety Advisory Committee under tab I, and a proposed public safety and emergency management policy under tab J. The board has emailed a packet on September 6th detailing the proposed resolution and policy, along with supporting documentation with an invitation to meet with the administration about any concerns. The proposed resolution and policy must have board approval to move forward with the establishment of a law enforcement agency on campus. Do you have any questions about the proposed resolution or the draft policy?
Right now is a discussion, yes.
Shouldn't we do the policy before we do the resolution? I mean, the board policy?
Well, we're doing the same.
I mean, it's the same, but, I mean, in terms of order.
If there's,
It's for discussion only.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, it seems to me that that would be.
if the resolution doesn't occur, then they really have to be done at the same time. If the resolution
Okay.
doesn't occur, then we
Okay.
won't need the policy.
Well, the policy, well, it's, we're not talking about the policy right now, right?
No, we're talking about both things.
Okay, because the policy doesn't look like, if you look at board policy in our board packet, our board policies have subtitles and headings and so forth, and this is simply a couple of paragraphs. So I'm just wondering if it could be put in the format of other board policies, so it looks like a board policy, because this doesn't look like a board policy.
I think.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
We have board policies that read similarly.
Yeah, they
Right, I just think
We
it
have
looks
it.
very informal, and I would like it to be a little more formal, that's all I'm saying.
How so?
Well, I mean, we could have the regular headings, like the general statement of the policy, and the summary of the policy, and the information and planning. It's all, those are what, the kinds of things that are in other board policies, and I just want it to look the same. It's in between two other policies, and I think it should look like the other two policies. I'm not trying to stop it, I'm just saying it looks kind of shoddy.
You're talking, excuse me, may I?
I'm talking about
Yes,
language.
the format, correct?
Exactly.
Okay, I agree.
I'm looking at the format, and it looks kind of informal. And this is a big deal. So anyway, I'd also like to see some sort of policy about campus safety and foreign students. Are we going to be a sanctuary? Are we going to allow police to come on campus without a warrant to ask for papers of students? Do we have a policy about what are, I doubt if we're going to be a sanctuary. I would like to be, but I doubt if that will happen. But we need to have some sort of policy about protecting those students when we have armed police on campus. I'm very concerned that the faculty and the OPTs and whoever else are on these committees are all appointed by the president. In the past, I know especially for faculty appoint faculty to committees. And if these committees are oversight committees, and if the president is the only one selecting people for these committees, then these committees have lost some of their validity, it seems to me. And so I think that language ought to be changed. They should be recommended, appointed by their elected bargaining units. I think there need to be policies and procedures for those committees. When someone brings a complaint, I mean, we've always had policies and procedures for committees. If someone brings a complaint to the one committee, do they investigate it? Do they just have a cup of coffee? Do they interview people? There needs to be a policy and a procedure that people know what to expect from those committees. I want to see more specifically how the care team interacts with these two committees. Because the care team is dealing with people who are potentially in trouble, which is exactly what this group is supposed to be doing as well. So are they going to meet regularly or talk to each other, or what's the, and I also like to see a little bit more detail in this training. I mean, the language is wonderful, but I don't see job descriptions. I see words like correct attitude. I'm not sure what that means in terms of policing. So I'd like to see a little more specific language about that. And I want to know how these CROs are going to develop these relationships. Are they going to meet with people regularly on campus? Are they going to meet with students? Are they going to meet with faculty? I mean, I'd like to see that spelled out a little more specifically because it's very, very important that these, whoever they are, do develop a relationship with the people on our campus, that they know our students, that they know our faculty. I don't want a young black faculty member like my son to be accosted by, he was accosted by security because he was here and he was young and he was black, and what the hell are you doing here? And it wasn't polite. And I don't want that to happen again. I had faculty who were accosted by just our security, not someone with a gun. So I want to know what those procedures are.
We understand that, Ruth, and I really hear your concern. But I think what I would like to say is that right now we're discussing this, and you touched on a lot of different areas. But right now, these are the things that you brought up before.
Yep.
And as they're going to be working through this, because it's not going to start tomorrow or next month.
But I would like to see some of this before I vote on something.
But
that's all I'm saying.
But
I suspect that once this happens, we're not going to hear much.
there's some things that they cannot do right now before voting, but we do need to vote. Some things they're not able to develop until they get this done. This is just a preliminary to get it started. We need something to get started, and I'm quite sure you understand, and believe me, your concerns have been duly noted, because we have discussed this in the past. So this isn't new, pretty much, what you're talking about. But we do know that. And I'm not in these discussions, but I do hear what you're saying, because these are our concerns too. I know they're mine. But you're talking about your son. My grandson comes here and he's autistic. So I understand what you're talking about. And my autistic kids are off the chain. So, your son is stable. Mine isn't.
I don't know how stable he is,
but still, he's not autistic.
Well,
so I'm telling you, I'm just comparing apples to apples here. Right now, I just want to concentrate, for this board to concentrate on this recommendation. That's all I want. Yes.
One more thing.
Yes.
I would like to, we've been discussing this for years.
Yes.
And the packet I've gotten here is remarkably thin.
We've had this packet before.
Thinking about this for years.
You've had this before.
I've
this
had it
not
exactly
new.
Right, and I've objected to it before, that it's thin.
May I be heard?
And I'm supposed to be on oversight of this, and I don't have enough to vote.
Yeah, let me just be heard here. You're right, it's been 2 years, and I don't think we're ever going to get your vote, and I don't think we're ever going to get your vote, no matter what we do. The best is the enemy of the good here. I understand there's always ways that we can tweak these policies, all right? But every day that goes by, we are the only higher education institution in this county without a police presence. And, I am terrified of what happens, of this board's responsibility if an incident happens and we have not done something. It's been almost 2 years we've been discussing this. And I understand that there's a risk that students can be targeted by police. There are theoretical risks all over the place, but there is a real and present danger in this country with regard to violence on campus. And I understand all of the pros and cons. I understand Black Lives Matter. I'm sympathetic to all of these issues. But we have a responsibility. But you haven't seen police shootings at the University of Michigan or Eastern Michigan.
There've been some.
We're talking about putting people in place, officers in place that will be hired, supervised, vetted, with policies that it seems to me have been consistent with best practices throughout this county and throughout this country. And sure, you can probably wordsmith these and make them better. I have no doubt that you can. But we're in a position here now where this campus is a soft target, and nobody seems to care. You know, and I'm sitting, you know, we have students here, we have faculty here that are vulnerable to acts of violence, terrorism. You know, acts of violence by people, you know, with different types of grudges against this college. And we're sitting here debating whether or not, you know, the president is somehow not going to appoint the right people to committees. I have no doubt this board has plenary power with regard to this institution. If we want to fine-tune these policies, we can. But we should do it in a fashion, you know, we need to implement, see how this goes, and then fine-tune the policies as we go along. That's what we've done in every other instance for every other major decision that we've made with regard to this community college. You know, in my judgment, we are being dilatory in implementing this policy. I think we should vote on it tonight, quite frankly. I don't think we should even wait a month. You know, I think the president has been mindful of a minority of this board, you know, to the point where we are completely neglecting the needs of the majority. You know, I believe that, you know, I don't care how many T-shirts you put on, I don't care how many people you have come repeatedly talk to this institution, the same people over and over again, all right? There is a population of people out here who are targeting this college, who potentially target this college. Right now we're vulnerable. It's been 2 years, and in my judgment, it is time that we act. Now, I do not see the risk of incidents with regard to these students as being high. I see that we have control over who we hire. We have control over who we fire. We have a mechanism of supervision here. This seems to be prudent policy. I can't believe that the Eastern Michigan University or the University of Michigan or Michigan State University or Wayne State University or any of the community colleges that have implemented these are somehow fascistic institutions that are putting officers on campus for the purpose of oppression. I believe these law enforcement officers are here to protect us. That's their job. And I think we have a duty as a board to make sure that the students and faculty of this college are protected. And I believe that every day we delay in implementing this policy, we are being dilatory in that duty.
I have no intention, I know full well that the majority of this board is in favor of these beliefs. I have no grand notions that I'm going to change that. All I'm saying is that I am, the first blue sheet in tab I is fine, but the rest of it is embarrassingly written
in your opinion, and I disagree.
Okay.
Trustee DeVarty.
Well, actually, I raised my hand initially because I wanted to do two things. I didn't intend to respond to any particular trustee at the table, so I'm going to hold off from that, even though it's taken me some restraint to do that. But first of all, I wanted to thank President Belanca for extending the offer to meet, to get us a copy of this ahead of the meeting. I want to acknowledge that and thank you. I wanted to meet. I had personal things that intervened, and I would like to take you up on the opportunity in this coming month to meet with you and VPs, Blakey and Barkoff.
Absolutely.
I have a lot of notes. I'm going to highlight some of them, but I'll hold some of them for an opportunity to sit down. The one thing that on the policy, and I hope we can get away with this, or get away from this, there's one statement in here that kind of grates on me.
Could you say where this is at, Dave?
That's the 8024 public safety policy.
Under J.
It's under
J.
The second page of J.
Right. Okay. Where it says, in order to ensure the safety and security of the campus, the college strictly prohibits violence or threatening behavior. I bristle at the word threatening in there, and I don't know how to get around it. I think some violence is a lot easier to say, okay, you're being violent, like physical violence, assault, or whatever. Threatening behavior, somebody marching around the campus with a sign, I guess with white supremacists marching, maybe that's threatening. Somehow, I just, that word grates on me in that policy, and I wanted to point that out. Most of what I wanted to speak to, though, was in I, and the first thing is, in the resolution, we have a resolved clause to create the Public Safety Advisory Committee, and with committees members appointed by the college president. I actually agree with Ruth that committee members should be appointed by their constituents. So faculty by faculty, OPTs by OPTs, other MEA employees on campus by MEAs. But I'd also like, if there are two distinct and separate committees, because we refer to the creation of a campus-wide public safety committee, which is much broader and does represent a broader range of constituencies on the campus and in the community, that we put that resolve. If we're going to create that, let's put it in there as a board resolution to create that committee as well. So we don't just leave it as an unsaid thing, and then at the will of the administration, it could be not created or created. And that's, it's up to the board whether they want to make that a board policy to have that. I actually like the fact that it's a broader constituency, but once again, I would ask that we try to bring the representatives to that committee to be appointed by their constituencies. I know in some cases that'll be harder, in a case like that, defer to an appointment by the president. But it might be nice to figure out a way to have students pick a student on that, for example.
Are you almost done?
Oh, I could hold things and just meet with them.
Why don't you put your notes in writing and submit them to the president? You're not amending the policy. Okay. You're not making a motion to amend the policy.
Well, they're asking for input.
Then give written input to the president. Okay. Will either be incorporated or it won't.
Instead of arguing with me,
Dave, I've been arguing with you about
Diana
this.
asked me if I could do it, if I had more.
Dave, how many? We have due processed you to death. You have filibustered this issue. You put on a T-shirt, for pity's sake. What kind of? This isn't a publicity stunt.
You put on a jacket.
This isn't a publicity stunt, Dave.
I don't complain about your jacket.
Dave, I'm not putting on T-shirts in front of people to play to the audience. I understand. We all know what you're doing here. So why don't you just give your input, if you really want to have a serious input into this policy, rather than just filibustering it, which is what I believe you are doing, then give your written input to the president. You've spoken about this for hours, hours since this first came up. And now, and I understand you have an issue with it. Give your feedback in writing.
I'm a grown man. You don't have to patronize.
Well, I don't need somebody.
We have a chair here that did not recognize you, and I would please ask that you let me have my time. The chair asked if I could defer, and I said yes. And then you immediately start hollering in a patronizing manner. This isn't,
Let's get this under control. It's getting out of control.
Speak.
Are you almost finished?
I'd like, no, but I'm happy, as I said, to meet with President Blanca and the VPs.
Okay, all right.
There is one thing that I would ask for, because I'm still looking for the rationale for this. And the one thing I would like to get a list, it refers to 233 conduct-related cases from 2016. I'd like to get a list of those cases.
I don't feel comfortable in doing that.
No,
maybe we
all
can,
the names can be blacked out.
Well, I'm just saying maybe we can discuss that, because I'm not sure the purpose of wanting a list of that.
Well, it's being used as a rationale for the...
We can discuss that, okay? Some things I don't feel comfortable about.
I would like a list of incidents that have resulted in the Sheriff's Department being called to the campus and the disposition from those incidents.
Okay.
And I know that's a much shorter list than the list of conduct-related cases. But it's,
Okay.
I don't see, if the rationale for doing this is a growth in the conduct-related cases that we've seen from year to year, I don't see why we, the policymakers, are denied that list. But
Well, I guess
again, I'll
what-
meet with you. I don't think that's a hard thing for you to provide.
Dave, I
And
just
I'm
don't
willing to
want us to be in the position of trying to micromanage this administration. There's some things we can ask for and some things we can't, because some things is not for us to have.
This isn't micromanagement. This is a broad policy.
All I'm saying is that we are not to be micromanaging the administration. Now, other people have some comments too, and I thank you for your comments. Trustee Milligan has had his hand up for a while. Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm new at this. I'm not as versed in the detail as some of the rest of you are. I would vote in favor of this. I think that the virtue in having our sworn officers on the campus is, well, among other things, the fact that we would have people working for us that know the campus, they know the layout, they know many of the faces on the campus. We have Scott Hilden as our public safety director, who's got 25 years of experience, was last a deputy chief in a law enforcement department, got a lot of management experience. We've got Vice President Veltri with his human resources background to help us in the selection. And the hiring and the selection of the individuals is key. And we have the ability, there's plenty of talent out there. There's the ability to select people that have the right skills, the right sensitivity, that there will be no oppression or abuse or people singled out incorrectly. There's some language here about appropriate training, especially for special needs and diversity. Training will be scheduled to include training required of school resource officers, training on autism, spectrum disorder, implicit bias, cultural sensitivity, dealing with mental illness, de-escalation of techniques, and other issues. There's a lot of good thinking that's already in front of us that can guide us in the selection of the people that do come to work for us as sworn officers. So I think we're on a good path, and I'll be voting for the motion.
Okay, thank you very much. I really would like to hear other members. Christina, do you have anything?
I'm sick.
I know you are.
No. I'm a little conflicted, of course, because I understand what community policing is, and it doesn't get a lot of visibility because nobody's really doing it. And I think community policing is a concept that could really change the world and make it better if more police agencies would implement those techniques and those tactics. And I think that in order to change the world, you need to start local. So I do favor the concept of community policing. I favor the concepts that have been illustrated to me by Scott. He gave that PowerPoint presentation, you know, polo shirts and khakis and de-escalating, de-emphasizing, you know, the military picture you might have of a traditional officer. So all those things are wonderful. It's stuff that I've, you know, studied before. In the current climate of government, I do have some legal concerns. I'm very concerned about our DACA students. I'm concerned about ICE, you know, flexing their arm from the Department of Justice. And I have some concerns about at what point do I no longer have the power? At what point does the ship sail on swearing the officers, and that now they're under Department of Justice, now they're under something else that I can't control to protect people, you know? I think conceptually it's all good. I just worry about other systems that we can't control like that,
Like
you
what
know?
kind of power would we be able
Yeah,
to
what's my
exert
power
to them?
to protect students here when other outside forces are coming in?
Because we
like
did
that?
make that resolution.
Yeah.
For the DACA students.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, President.
So we share your concern as well. And if you recall, trustees, when we originally looked at this proposal, we talked about the sheriff's office. And one of the reasons that we felt this was the best avenue for us to research is because we wanted to have control over our campus. And we believe that if we have our own police force, it won't be like a police force. These campus resource officers would be working with the care team. We wouldn't have to, I have to be careful with the terms I use, I know, Linda. We'd be very careful to treat students with respect and understand the legal issues.
I don't doubt your intentions and everybody and all of our staff. I doubt the external intentions of.
They have control over us now.
You know.
I don't think a police department, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I'm just.
You're talking about ICE.
Yeah, I'm talking about ICE.
She's talking about ICE.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
talking about ICE.
I understand.
Yeah. I don't want our police to be compelled to obey ICE.
However,
you know what I mean?
we may not have a choice, but I don't know that. We don't know.
Do we have the power to say, no, you can't come on here? You know, we govern ourselves. But where's that demarcation? Where's that barrier, you know? I wanted us to protect ourselves and do our own thing. That's a good thing.
But then you're looking at ramifications from the government.
Yeah.
So.
But then again, if we didn't have it, wouldn't the sheriff have jurisdiction?
That's true. I mean, that's how it is
So there
now.
isn't any way for us to protect ours without it.
Yeah, that's
You know
how it
what
is
I'm
now,
saying?
but.
It's a good point, but we still
is a
wouldn't
good-
have it.
They should at least require a warrant.
Okay, we
Well, I'm
sent out a
It doesn't say
statement
that
regarding
anywhere.
that.
We don't voluntarily,
We will
disclose
not.
information like that without a warrant.
If they come with a warrant, we don't have much choice, but if they don't come with a warrant,
Right.
we do.
will
Which they
not.
do.
Right.
Trustee Davis.
Well, my personal feelings about campus resource officers has always been favorable, you know, from the beginning. Having attended other colleges and universities where community resource officers were visible on campus, they were, from my knowledge, was not aware of any violent activity that required those officers to show themselves publicly in de-escalating threatening behavior. But it was safe and reassuring to know that the entity was there in the event something were to happen. And I feel that to be the case here. This campus is a beautiful campus. Things happen all the time, things that perhaps we don't even know that have already been addressed and resolved by the security officers. But to say if something more involved, more in depth were to happen, would we be equipped with the security officers that we have on hand now to handle it, whatever that situation may be? And I would feel more secure, one, as a taxpaying citizen, two, as a board of trustee, knowing that this campus having enforcement officer here will ensure that everyone's safety is number one. We have a lot of kids here, you know, the middle tech school. They're my main concern, not to say that no one else is, but those kids are my main concern. Those who have, you know, different levels of mental illnesses. I have true faith in the hiring and the selecting process of the staff for that particular department. Mr. Scott Heldon, you know, with his years of professional experience in this area. We've got to get somewhere where we can get the ball rolling, because right now we're still sitting on the start line that say, okay, well, who's going to go first? Well, who's going to go first? And we've been doing this for 2 years. Okay, well, so what's going to happen now? Well, in order to get the the momentum going, we have to do something, and everything else will fall into place. I'm in favor of this. I truly respect everyone's emails that I have personally received. I have read all of them. And no, I did not respond to any of them because I take them internally and I weigh what their concerns are, and they're valid concerns. It's healthy to have opposing perspective. But this is reality too. I just like to be prepared. I like to have the environment that I'm in and everyone around me to feel that they're safe and they don't have to fear. And there is no fear. I don't see where the fear is. That's just me. A lot of people will say, well, A, B, and C is the fear. Well, I don't see that. I see it as another way of just making sure that what we have is well protected and that everyone still maintains their level of comfortability here on campus.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to say that probably heard me say this before. I know the board members have heard me. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You can finish, and I just don't want you to move on before I get to.
You're right, and I did forget. Go ahead.
Just some suggestions. I'd like this to be done right. I'd like to see a diverse group of people doing the interviewing. I'd like to see some where resolves and whereases that have more to do with other kinds of safety rather than just criminal safety. We've got disease prevention, we've got acts of God, we've got all kinds of threats to a campus of the people besides criminal activity. I'd like to see 2 revisions here, specifically the appointment of the college president and the resolve to have the second committee in the resolution.
You want it in or out? Is that what you're saying?
The one
Okay.
committee is in. The
Right.
second committee is not in.
Okay.
So I'd like the second committee there. I'd like some revision of the appointment of the president. I'd like some acknowledgement that safety has more to do with other things besides criminal activity. And I'd like a revision of the board policy to look more like a board policy. Those are my very specific suggestions.
Okay, I think that could be worked on. This is up to the president and her staff to work on this. But those are suggestions. They can try to do whatever they can do.
Well, when I look at appointed by the college president, I think it just means recommended, so you're.
Didn't say recommended.
No, recommended to me. Who's going to be in charge? I mean, the buck's got to stop somewhere. I think it stops here. So I understand what you're saying. I think the process, respectfully, is what we're talking about. Like if we say it's one faculty member, is it one faculty member that they elect? Is it one, you know what I mean? So it's the process, but the buck has to stop somewhere. And I say, that's why I think it says appointed by the president. I mean, the process is what is important to you, and I will ensure that.
Recommended to and appointed by.
Okay, recommended to and appointed by?
And that's the way department chairs are
That sounds
done.
good.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to go to, I would like to vote on this tonight. We had beat this, as I said before. The last time I used this, we beat the horse until we beat him to bones. Now we beat him until he's ashes. I would like to call the question.
Well, I object to voting on it tonight.
I would like to call the question. Is there a support?
Support.
Second?
Support.
Okay.
Is that?
The resolution itself can be passed at any time once we did our 2 public hearings.
Right.
So that's not the question. The policy This is the
But in
first,
terms of our bylaws,
this is,
if it's on our agenda as a discussion item to be voted on next meeting.
well, we've done that many times in the past.
I know, but
It's the first
with
reading. So-
consensus.
Well, with a majority vote.
So that my
Your recommendations will be, are duly
Policy
noted,
vote.
but they can revise them.
This is what you're voting on. You're voting on the words on
But
this
that
blue
our
piece of
bylaws
paper.
allow that.
And I recommended
Board
2
policy.
changes.
At a
to
special,
that.
at a regular meeting.
Now, if you want to revise it now,
Not
that's
special.
fine. And we had the one revision about the president, and all we have to do is add the other committee as a resolution.
Okay, so
Okay.
it'd be, may I speak?
Yes, go ahead,
So,
please.
So what it would say in that second paragraph from the bottom, it would be with the committee members to be recommended to and appointed by the president.
That's
Is that
better.
correct?
That's better.
Okay, all right, and what was the other, the committee?
This is one.
So I know there's a public safety officer.
So first of all, we need to vote if we're going to, we have to vote
We have
to
to
see if we're going
amend
to
it
vote on it
first.
tonight.
We have
That's got to
amend-
be a separate vote, parliamentary.
Right.
Okay, do that.
And then we can amend it.
Public Safety Advisory Committee and the Campus-Wide Public Safety Committee is what the second resolution should say, should talk about.
Well, I would,
Where did you see that at, Ruth?
Oh, it's before the blue stuff.
well, here,
But where is it in here?
It
There's-
isn't, that's what I'm saying.
No, there is.
I'm wanting to add
Okay.
the resolution that there's a second committee.
so the way I would do it, if we're going to vote on this tonight,
Yes.
so first we should vote, parliamentarily, we should vote to say we're going to vote on it.
Right.
And then we can add amendments after that.
Right.
That's just parliamentary process.
Right.
At which point, I would ask that we
Well,
add in...
let's do this first.
Okay.
You've made a motion for this to be advanced, to be put on the agenda
Yes.
as an action item tonight.
Yes.
You have support.
Yes.
All in favor, just
Okay.
do that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
No.
Okay.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Now, we're going to have an amendment to what we just voted on for the resolution on the establishment of the Washington Community College Law Enforcement Agency. And the amendment will be, who's going to say that? You?
I move that we insert a new, be it further resolved, that a
Are you adding new language or amending?
I'm adding new
Can I just make
language.
a point of order, Madam Chair?
Yes, yes.
I would recommend that if an amendment is proposed, that each amendment be put to a vote by the board to determine whether or not will be included in the policy.
I agree.
We should go by amendment,
Right,
And
that's
if it's in, it's in, and if it's out, it's out.
I agree with that.
Okay?
All right. So
That's
the
the way to
first,
do it.
the first one is, the first amendment is which one?
Be it further resolved, I'll write it out,
I know.
that the campus-wide Public Safety Committee is hereby created
It says that already.
Yeah.
with the purpose, it could just reference with the purpose and composition in the supporting documents.
Well,
I think that's a problem.
I can say it a little bit better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be it further resolved that the campus-wide public safety committee are hereby granted the powers and authority as an advisory role, providing staff and student input on public safety and security policies. This is under the purpose, it's already written, you guys wrote it. Security policies and procedures of the Public Safety Department may best serve the needs of the college community. So what I've done is, be it further resolved, I've added the campus-wide public safety, and I've put their purpose as the first sentence under your purpose on the page. And that fulfills that paragraph.
Okay, now put that to a vote.
So that is the
That's the proposed
that's the
amendment.
proposed amendment.
That's the proposal.
Okay. So, is
All
there?
in favor?
I second that.
There's seconded.
Persons, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Carries.
Carries.
The second change is the paragraph before that, be it resolved that the Public Safety Advisory Committee for the college is hereby created with the committee members to be recommended and appoint, what did we say?
Recommended to and appointed
Recommended
by.
to and appointed by the college president.
Support. All in favor?
Is there another?
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Okay, got it.
Okay, now,
Larry, you getting all this? Good.
And then we have to do the whole thing.
now we have to do the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I
again.
understand.
Yeah, okay. Now, I didn't write this down, so somebody has to help me.
Just don't have to read the whole thing
Okay.
as amended.
Okay. We have had an amendment to the proposal, and it has been voted on. And I would like to call the question. Is there support?
Support?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
No, just-
One point of
It has to be
discussion.
a roll call.
I'm sorry.
One point of discussion. I have a lot of, I know that there's a lot to do to implement this, and I would like to be able to take you up on your offer
Absolutely.
to meet.
Anyone
Because
can.
I think
Absolutely.
there's some ideas that hopefully the vice presidents will agree that will help make it a better.
Absolutely.
Just to be clear, we're voting on tab I, resolution on the
Tab I.
establishment of a Washtenaw Community College law enforcement agency. The question's been called, so you're requesting a roll call, Madam Chair?
Requesting a roll
Please
call.
call the roll, Vanessa.
Chair Knight Morton,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fleming,
Yes.
Treasurer Milliken,
Yes.
Secretary Davis,
Yes.
Trustee DeVarty,
No.
Trustee Hatcher,
No.
Trustee Landau.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carried, and
Now we're moving to tab
now
J.
we're going to tab J. This is the establishment of policy 8024, public safety and emergency management. Recommendations, the Board of Trustees approve the establishment of policy 8024, public safety and emergency management as submitted.
Support?
Is there a second? Second. Support? Is there discussion?
This goes along with the first one, and I could vote for it if it were better formatted, but it isn't, so I can't.
Okay. We can always change format.
I could vote for this without the ambiguity of threatening behavior.
Of who?
Make a motion to take.
Okay, I'll move to amend the sentence that says, "In order to ensure the safety and security of the campus, the college strictly prohibits violence," period.
Or violent behavior.
Violent behavior, okay. That sounds good.
Support? All in favor?
Is it?
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor?
Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay.
Okay, it's passed.
Further amendments? Ask if there are any further amendments.
Any further amendments?
Any further amendments?
Okay, call the question.
Okay, call the question, roll call?
Chair Knight Morton,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fleming,
Yes.
Treasurer Milliken,
Yes.
Secretary Davis,
Yes.
Trustee DeVarty,
Yes.
Trustee Hatcher,
No.
Trustee Landau.
Yes.
Okay. That has passed. Thank you both, all of you. I was talking about those two down there, both of you, for submitting some amendments. which I think is incorporated into this policy. Thank you.
Tab K is.
Okay, we're going to tab K.
We did that already.
We're done.
Oh, we're done? Are we done?
I move that we adjourn.
Okay, geez, I forgot about tab K being passed already. So I would like to give a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
For, okay, all in favor? Aye. Good night.